Chapter 1. Aurora Sterling had lost her memory. She'd been in a car accident. When she woke up in the hospital, her mind was a complete blank. The first thing she saw was a trio of handsome, unfamiliar young men gathered around her bed. One was an academic with the cool demeanor of an ice prince, another a rebellious and untamable campus king, and the third had the innocent air of a golden retriever puppy. The crucial point was all three claimed to be her boyfriend. "Rory, you're awake. Rory, does it hurt anywhere? Rory, are you uncomfortable?" Aurora stared at their impossibly handsome faces, but her mind couldn't retrieve a single memory of them. Seeing her blank expression, the three men grew anxious and immediately called for a doctor. The final diagnosis was amnesia, caused by a severe blow to the head. After hearing the news, the cool-tempered young man left the room. When he returned, he was holding a thick stack of papers. "Rory, these are your personal records and academic transcripts. Maybe they'll help." Aurora took the heavy file, and for the first time, her blank life began to take shape. It turned out she was an orphan, abandoned as an infant and raised by a kind grandmother who collected recyclables to get by. The two had been inseparable, but tragically, her grandmother had passed away just a week ago. Her family was poor, but she was an excellent student. She had earned a place at the country's top university and was now a sophomore. As she flipped to the last page, Aurora saw something clearly written at the bottom of a form. Boyfriend, Lachlan Grayson. Lachlan was the aloof, moon-like young man, the one who had printed out her entire life story in the shortest possible time after learning of her amnesia. He met her questioning gaze with a calm, composed expression, his cool eyes softened with a hint of tenderness. "Rory, you lost your memory in a car accident a few days ago. Don't be afraid. The doctor said you might recover quickly. I'm your boyfriend. I'll be here to take care of you." Before Aurora could react, another young man behind him rushed forward with a sneer. "Cut the crap, Lachlan," he leaned over her bed. "Rory, don't listen to his nonsense. I'm your boyfriend. My name is Julian Donovan." The words had barely left his mouth when the third young man, who seemed the most good-natured, tugged at her sleeve with a wounded look. "Rory, you don't want me anymore? I'm Liam Langley. I'm your boyfriend." None of them would back down. All three insisted they were her boyfriend. The hospital room descended into chaos, and the noise gave Aurora a headache. But something felt deeply, strangely wrong. Even with amnesia, she had a gut feeling that her personality and life experiences wouldn't have led her to fall in love so easily. Especially not with three men like them. From their demeanor to their clothes, it was obvious they were from wealthy, powerful families. They were also stunningly handsome. How could they possibly be involved with someone like her? Unable to let the argument continue, Aurora intervened. "You all say you're my boyfriend. Can anyone prove it?" Lachlan, Julian, and Liam all froze, then shook their heads. In unison, they said, "We were dating in secret. No one at school knows." Aurora was even more bewildered. If they were liars, what could they possibly want from a penniless orphan like her? Besides, all three of them seemed so sincere. Aurora had no choice but to tentatively accept the possibility that she really did have a boyfriend. "Then tell me, how did I meet you, and how did we get together?" Lachlan was the first to answer. He sighed. "It seems you've really forgotten everything. You used to have a secret crush on me. You left breakfast in my desk drawer every day for a month, until one day, you suddenly stopped. I couldn't stand it, so I came to find you. I asked why you gave up, and you blushed and said it was because you saw me with a girlfriend. I couldn't help but laugh. I told you I'd been waiting for a certain shy girl to confess, so how could I possibly have a girlfriend? That day, we cleared up the misunderstanding, and I kissed you, and we've been together ever since." As she listened, a dull ache throbbed in Aurora's head. A faint image of her leaving breakfast for Lachlan flashed through her mind. Had she really been in love with this cool, brilliant student? But just then, Julian kicked over a nearby chair in a fit of rage. "That's a load of bull. How could Rory ever like you? She's in love with me." Julian rushed forward. "Rory, don't listen to a word he says. Our story is the real one, don't you remember? That day in the alley, you were being harassed by thugs, and I saved you. You said you wanted to thank me, and I told you to repay me by giving yourself to me." Another sharp pain shot through Aurora's brain, and she vaguely saw a scene of herself being beaten by thugs in an alley. Before she could process it, Liam hurried over. "Rory, don't listen to them. I'm your boyfriend, don't you remember?" We met at the art studio. You were working part-time and I was taking lessons. Later, you were framed for stealing money and almost got fired. I was the one who testified for you. After that, we grew closer and closer, and eventually we got together." As he finished, a fragment of a memory being fired from the studio flickered in her mind. She was utterly confused. All three of them, it seemed like none of them were lying. Chapter 2, but how was that possible? Could she have 3 boyfriends? Aurora immediately dismissed the thought. She didn't think she had what it took to juggle 3 men like them. She rubbed her aching forehead. "Could you all please go? I need to think this through alone." But when she spoke, not one of them moved. Lachlan shot the other 2 a cold glare, then picked up an apple from the table and began peeling it for her. "You get some rest. I'll stay here and watch over you." Julian and Liam showed no intention of leaving either. Julian said, "Rory, I'm staying with you too." Liam added, "Rory, I'll keep you company." Aurora was speechless, and so none of them would yield. They stayed by her side in the hospital room, day in and day out. Not only that, but they started a bizarre competition. A competition to see who could treat her the best. One day, Lachlan would have fresh blueberries flown in from abroad for her. The next, Julian would fill her room with her favorite roses. The day after, Liam would bring her a ragdoll kitten to cheer her up. While Liam was playing with the cat, he accidentally brushed against Aurora, and the other 2 men's faces immediately turned to ice. For once, Lachlan and Julian were united. They each grabbed one of Liam's arms. "Don't touch my girlfriend." Julian shot back, "Lachlan, when did she become your girlfriend?" Lachlan replied coolly, "She always has been." The alliance crumbled as quickly as it had formed. Caught in the middle, Aurora was in an impossible position. This 3-way battle for her affection continued until the day she was discharged. Early that morning, while the 3 of them were gone, Aurora left the hospital on her own. Using the address from her files, she found her home. It was in a dilapidated old tenement building. As she stepped inside, a powerful sense of familiarity washed over her, despite her memory loss. The worn-out apartment was sparsely furnished, a clear sign of a life lived in poverty. In the center of a wooden table sat a memorial photograph of an elderly woman. Looking at the photo, a sudden, sharp pain pierced Aurora's heart. She knew, without a doubt, that this was the grandmother who had raised her. Tears streamed down her face uncontrollably. Aurora knelt before the photograph and bowed her head in a gesture of deep respect. Next, she entered a small, shabby room. It appeared to be her bedroom. The walls were covered with academic awards from her childhood to the present, and the desk was piled high with books. It was clear that her life had been almost entirely dedicated to her studies. Perhaps because her family was so poor, she had been determined to change her fate through education. Then, Aurora noticed something else. On the desk was a notebook. She opened it to find page after page filled with 2 words, written over and over. Lachlan Grayson. Aurora froze, Lachlan's handsome, cool face flashing in her mind. Could it be true, as he'd said? Had she been secretly in love with him? But then, what about Julian and Liam? Her thoughts grew more tangled, and she felt as if she had forgotten something critically important. But the harder she tried to remember, the more her head ached. In the end, Aurora gave up. The next day, it was time for Aurora to return to class. Early in the morning, she received 3 text messages, one from each of them. They all said they were waiting downstairs to take her to school. Aurora peeked through her window and, sure enough, saw 3 luxury cars parked below vehicles that were starkly out of place in front of her run-down building. Fearing another chaotic scene, she snuck downstairs and slipped out through the back door. In the end, she took the bus to school. Arriving at Kingston University, everything felt foreign. When she entered her lecture hall, she didn't recognize any of her classmates. As soon as she sat down, her phone vibrated again. "Rory, no matter how much you try to run, I'm still your boyfriend." "Rory, why did you leave by yourself?" "I was so worried." "Rory, I'll be back to pick you up tomorrow." Reading the messages, Aurora felt a storm of conflicting emotions. She felt an overwhelming urge to find some answers. Turning to the female student next to her, she couldn't help but ask, "Excuse me, do you know Lachlan Grayson, Julian Donovan, and Liam Langley?" The student looked at her, surprised. The 3 campus gods. Who at Kingston doesn't know them? Why do you ask? Aurora hesitated. They all say they're my boyfriend. For a moment, the entire classroom fell silent. Then it erupted in laughter. "Aurora Sterling, did that car accident scramble your brains?" The female student stared at her as if she were insane. "Seriously, Aurora, take a look at yourself. All three of them are your boyfriends. Are you still dreaming? Don't tell me you think you're Penelope Thorne. You think they'd ever chase after you?" Facing the mockery from all sides, Aurora sat frozen in her seat, feeling small and exposed. From everyone's reaction, it seemed impossible that she could have any connection to those three popular figures. Then why were they all fighting to be her boyfriend? Before she could figure it out, she heard 3 sets of footsteps approaching from behind. Lachlan, Julian, and Liam walked into the classroom together. The 3 young men were dazzling, and in an instant all eyes were on them. "Oh my God, am I seeing things? Why is Julian Donovan here? I thought he hated class. Lachlan is here too. I can't believe I'm seeing the legendary scholar god in person." Liam came with them. OMG, amid the gasps of astonishment, the trio ignored the stares and walked straight toward Aurora. Chapter 3, Lachlan gently wrapped a scarf he had prepared around Aurora's neck. "Why are you wearing so little?" he murmured. "You'll catch a cold." Julian handed her breakfast and pinched her cheek with a helpless sigh. "You ran off so fast you didn't even eat. Now, finish this." Liam eagerly offered a carton of milk. "Rory, it's so cold out. I just bought this. Drink something warm to heat up." The entire room was in an uproar. Everyone stared, dumbfounded, their gazes fixed on Aurora. It wasn't until the lecture started that Aurora frantically pulled her hands away and sank back into her seat. Throughout the entire class, she was on edge, her mind a tangled mess of yarn. When the bell finally rang, she grabbed her books and fled the classroom, escaping back to her dorm. All she wanted was a quiet place to think. But when she got back to her room, she found her bed the one with her name on it splashed with ink. Her bedsheets had been shredded, and the wall beside her bed was covered with posters. Guttersnipe, get out of Kingston. Aurora's face turned pale, and she stood frozen in place. According to her records, she had been raised by her grandmother, who collected scrap for a living. The other 3 girls in the dorm saw her stunned expression and sneered. "What's with the act, Aurora? You think a little car accident means we're going to accept you? Here at Kingston, you'll always be at the bottom of the social ladder. Don't even dream of changing that." Their cruel words sent a chill down Aurora's spine. So, this was what her life at school had been like. Seeing her silence, one of the roommates twisted open a bottle of mineral water and was about to pour it over Aurora's head. Just then, the door burst open. Lachlan rushed forward and pulled Aurora into his arms. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Julian snatched the water bottle and without a second thought, emptied it over the bullies. "You dare to bully her? You're asking for it." Liam saw the trashed bed and his face darkened. He delivered a chilling threat. "Remember this. From now on, anyone who messes with Aurora Sterling messes with me." Liam Langley. Soaked and shivering, the roommates didn't dare say a word. Lachlan shielded Aurora as they left the room. On the way out, Aurora kept her head down, a wave of sadness washing over her. She had always assumed that, given her love for learning, her school life would have been simple and happy. But now, she realized she might have never been happy at all. She followed the 3 of them in silence until they arrived at a luxurious apartment. "Rory, this is my place. You'll live here from now on." Aurora snapped back to reality and was about to object, but Lachlan cut her off. "It's close to campus and the environment is comfortable. The doctor said you need to rest." "That's right, no arguing with us," Julian added. "We can't rest easy with you in that dorm," Liam said. "Besides, after what they did, do you really think you can go back?" Their tone was firm, leaving her no room to refuse. Aurora knew her situation was untenable. "Fine," she said. "But I'll pay rent." Lachlan cut her off again, his voice turning cold. "You're my girlfriend. You're going to live with me and pay me rent. Do you want people to laugh at me?" Julian immediately interjected. "Don't you dare take advantage of the situation. Rory is my girlfriend." Just as they were about to start arguing again, Liam stepped in. All right, didn't we already agree? We'll give Rory 1 month. Rory, after 1 month, you have to remember who your boyfriend is. Even if you don't remember, you have to choose one of us." Aurora started, but looking at their 3 faces, she truly couldn't remember. But it was clear they had made up their minds. They had even made a countdown calendar. 30 days left until becoming Aurora Sterling's boyfriend. Then Liam tore off the first page. Aurora was speechless. She thought back to her classmates' reactions in the lecture hall. Their mockery, every single word, was a reminder that she couldn't possibly be involved with these three. After a long pause, Aurora finally spoke. "I really can't remember. And everyone thinks I'm not good enough for you. Whatever happened in the past, maybe from now on—" "Rory," Julian cut her off, his voice firm and clear. "In my heart, no one is better than you." Chapter 4, Aurora's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Julian. Lachlan spoke next. "When I agreed to be with you, I never once thought about leaving." The usually cold young man's eyes were filled with deep affection as he looked at her. Liam, like a puppy defending its territory, grabbed her hand. "I don't care. I want to be with you. You said you were happiest when you were with me." All three were determined to have her, and Aurora was at a loss for words. In the 2 short days since her discharge, she had already pieced together a rough picture of her past life. Yesterday, at home, she had found her childhood diary. She learned that she had been ostracized and bullied since she was a child because she was poor and her grandmother collected scrap. This was probably the first time anyone had ever wanted to be close to her, to offer her warmth, to treat her as if she was the only one. Even though everything since her amnesia felt surreal, a current of warmth flowed through her heart. No matter what, the feeling of being loved was truly wonderful. Suddenly, she thought of someone else and couldn't help but ask, "By the way, do you know Penelope Thorne?" At the mention of the name, all three men's expressions changed. Lachlan's tone grew slightly heavy. "Why do you bring her up?" Aurora answered honestly. "I heard someone mention her name in class today. It sounded like she's close with all three of you. I thought maybe meeting her could help me remember. Can I see her?" Hearing this, Lachlan, Julian, and Liam exchanged a subtle glance. Finally, Liam spoke up. "Penny grew up with us. She's our childhood friend. She's abroad for a competition right now. She doesn't contact us much, so she wouldn't be much help with your memory." Since Liam put it that way, Aurora didn't press the matter. They quickly changed the subject, and the topic was dropped. In the end, she stayed in the apartment. That weekend, the three of them came over to take her to the hospital for a follow-up appointment. In the back of a stretch limousine, Aurora was flanked by the three young men. Feeling a bit overwhelmed, she took out her phone as a distraction. The moment she opened the campus social media page, she saw a trending post. "Crazy 3 campus gods all in love with the gutter snipe?" Aurora's eyelashes fluttered as she clicked on the post. Sure enough, someone had posted photos from the other day in the lecture hall, showing the three of them fussing over her. The comment section was on fire with discussions from students all over campus. "Are the 3 campus gods insane? Am I seeing things? My 3 gods have fallen for Aurora Sterling. Aren't they afraid of catching the smell of trash? OMG, I don't believe it. Have the gods been watching too many Cinderella stories?" Although no one wanted to believe it, many people had witnessed the scene in the classroom. The forum was buzzing, and the post quickly garnered thousands of comments. As Aurora scrolled, she saw a comment from an anonymous account. "Don't be ridiculous. All 3 of them have a white moonlight. This is just a game." Reading that sentence, Aurora's heart tightened. A game? What game? She quickly clicked on the account, wanting to send a private message and ask for details. But in the next second, the post miraculously vanished. Aurora was forced back to the main page. She refreshed it several times, but the discussion was gone. It had clearly been taken down. She immediately looked up at the 3 men in the car. Was it them? Before she could speak, a deafening horn blast shattered the air. A car with failing brakes was hurtling straight toward them in a flash. The 2 vehicles collided with a deafening crash. Bang! All 3 men instinctively threw themselves over her. But despite their efforts, the force of the impact slammed Aurora's head hard against the car window. As a wave of excruciating pain washed over her, a flood of unfamiliar yet familiar memories surged into her mind. She remembered. Chapter 5, an ambulance arrived at the scene shortly after. The accident wasn't severe. Shielded by the 3 men, Aurora had only suffered a bump to the head and wasn't seriously injured. The men themselves had some cuts and bruises, but nothing was broken. They were all put on stretchers and taken to the hospital together. After their wounds were treated, the 3 of them looked at her with varying expressions. Finally, Liam couldn't hold back any longer. "You said just now, you remember everything?" he asked cautiously. Aurora nodded, and the men's expressions instantly shifted. But in the next second, she sighed. I only remember who I am and my childhood with Grandma, but I still have no memory of my time at university. In other words, she still didn't remember the three of them. She only remembered being raised by her grandmother, stumbling through a difficult childhood. Her grandmother, having been abandoned by her own children, had a special place in her heart for the little girl she found abandoned. Growing up besides her grandma, no one else had ever cared about her. But now, thinking of how the three of them had thrown themselves in front of her during the crash, Aurora's heart ached with a bittersweet warmth. In that moment, she suddenly felt that no matter who her real boyfriend was, their affection for her was precious. It turned out she, too, was worthy of being cared for. Her eyes welled with tears as she looked at them. "Thank you for risking your lives to save me just now." Seeing her like this, the three men exchanged a look, a subtle, collective sigh of relief passing between them. The car accident had become the catalyst for Aurora to finally accept them. Before, she had always kept a certain distance from these three strangers, but after this, she truly saw them as friends. "No matter who my boyfriend is, I consider all of you my best friends." After she was discharged, the 1-month deadline they had set drew closer. After some discussion, they decided to try to help her regain her memory separately. Mondays and Tuesdays would be with Liam, Wednesdays and Thursdays with Julian, and Fridays and Saturdays with Lachlan. On Monday, Liam took her to the art studio where she used to work. Surrounded by easels, Aurora felt a strange sense of familiarity. Liam playfully dabbed her face with a paintbrush, drawing 2 whiskers. "Hey, stop messing around." Aurora laughed and dodged away, but Liam managed to finish the whiskers, then drew a matching set on his own face. "Well, do you remember? We used to do this all the time." Looking at his comical expression, Aurora found it amusing, but it didn't trigger any memories. When it was Julian's turn, he took her to an amusement park. He even rode the carousel with her. Seeing the notoriously rebellious young man awkwardly perched on a wooden horse, Aurora couldn't help but smile. "Whenever you were sad, you loved for me to bring you here. You used to say that as soon as you got on the carousel, all your sadness would disappear." He said it with such deep affection in his eyes. Aurora was touched, but still, she couldn't remember a thing. Finally, it was Lachlan's turn to help her find her memories. The place Lachlan took her was just like his personality. Quiet and cool, it was a beautiful lake. The turquoise water shimmered under the sunlight, and Aurora found herself lost in the scenery. Suddenly, Lachlan wrapped his arms around her from behind. Her hands clenched, her body stiffening, still not used to such intimacy. His warm breath tickled her ear, and his pleasant scent enveloped her. "Do you remember this place? It was our secret spot." It was secluded and beautiful, the perfect place for a secret hideout. Chapter 6, "We used to come here all the time. We just stand here quietly in the breeze. You would look at the scenery, and I would look at you." His words made Aurora's ears turn red, but still, she couldn't remember a thing. "I'm sorry, I still don't remember." Lachlan froze for a moment, then sighed. "It's okay, as long as I remember." A week passed with no progress in recovering her memory. It was time to start the cycle again. Aurora was walking through campus, feeling a bit down, but Liam was nowhere to be found. It was his day to be with her, and he had always been so eager before. A sense of unease crept over her. She called him and learned he was at an art exhibition. It was a show by his favorite painter, Stephen. When Aurora arrived, she found the usually sunny Liam sitting dejectedly on the steps. "Liam, what's wrong?" He looked up at her and said slowly, "Stephen is my favorite artist. I wanted to ask him to be my mentor, but he said he stopped taking students a year ago." Feeling his sadness, Aurora glanced at the man inside the gallery. "If you could show him how sincere you are, maybe he would agree." Liam forced a smile. "Stephen only cares about fate and inspiration. He would never agree." He was radiating defeat. With that, he stood up and walked away, a shadow of his usual self. Liam had always been so bright and optimistic. It was the first time Aurora had ever seen him like this. Watching his lonely figure retreat, she stood there for a long time before making a decision and walking into the gallery. Stephen was indeed a very proud artist. No matter how much Aurora pleaded, he wouldn't budge. But even after being rejected, Aurora refused to leave. "Mr. Stephen, Liam is truly talented. Please take him as your student. He won't disappoint you." She blocked the doorway, refusing to be moved even when security guards tried to escort her away. Finally, Stephen grew tired of her persistence. "Miss Sterling, I can agree to give him a chance." Aurora's eyes lit up. Stephen continued in his accented English, on one condition. "You must complete a task I set for you." She nodded immediately. "Whatever it is, I'll do it." The next day, Liam received a call from Stephen. He was so shocked to hear that the artist was willing to take him on as a student that he was speechless. "You're really willing to mentor me?" On the other end, Stephen said, "Liam, you have a good friend. Her sincerity moved me." Liam was stunned. A good friend? After hanging up, he rushed to Stephen's gallery. At the entrance, he saw Aurora, drenched from head to toe, her pants and shoes covered in mud. She looked utterly wretched, but she seemed completely unaware of it. When she saw him, she stood up, her face beaming. "Liam, Stephen agreed to take you. You convinced him?" Liam was in disbelief. "How did you do it?" Aurora smiled sheepishly. "He said yesterday that if I could catch 100 blue butterflies from Deerhall Mountain for him before 8 this morning, he would agree." Liam stared at her, horrified, finally understanding her disheveled state. He remembered it had poured rain all night. "You were out catching butterflies in the rain all night? Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Aurora's eyes were bloodshot, but she shook her head. "I just wanted you to achieve your dream." A lump formed in Liam's throat. "Did you ever think about what would have happened if you'd fallen off the mountain?" Deerhall Mountain was steep to begin with. It had been raining last night, and she was trying to catch butterflies. It was a miracle she had made it back alive. Before Aurora could answer, she swayed and fainted. "Rory!" A flash of panic crossed Liam's face. He quickly caught her and rushed her to the hospital. Chapter 7, when Aurora woke up in the hospital, Liam was still by her side. Seeing her awake, he hugged her, his eyes red. "Don't you ever do something so dangerous again. You scared me to death." Aurora managed a weak smile and teased. "You said you were my boyfriend, right? Isn't it a girlfriend's duty to make her boyfriend happy? I don't want to see you unhappy." Liam's heart trembled. He held her even tighter, murmuring her name over and over. After a night on an IV drip, Aurora finally regained her strength. It was the next morning when she and Liam returned to campus, where they ran into Julian. Julian immediately pulled Aurora to his side. "Liam, are you trying to monopolize her? She's mine today." Liam was clearly reluctant to let her go, but he had no choice. He tugged on her sleeve like a devoted puppy and reminded her, "Rory, make sure you get some rest." "All right, she's with me now. You don't need to worry." Julian impatiently pushed Liam away. Liam watched them leave, his gaze lingering long after they were out of sight. "Come on, I'm taking you out to have some fun today." Of the three, Julian was the one who most enjoyed taking Aurora out. He took her shopping, to the movies, and even to an arcade. "You've spent your whole life studying. You're too wound up. You need to relax." But Aurora wasn't very good at video games, so Julian patiently taught her, his hands guiding hers. After a whirlwind of fun, she did feel much more relaxed. By the time they left the arcade, it was already dark. Julian's phone rang. "JD, the usual spot. You in for a get-together?" Julian nodded nonchalantly. "Sure." He glanced at Aurora and raised an eyebrow with a grin. "I'm bringing someone." When they arrived at the private room, Aurora realized their get-together was a drinking party. There were 7 or 8 of Julian's friends in the room, and she was the only girl. "JD, we had a rule, no girls at guys' night. You broke the rule, so you've got to drink up." Julian accepted without hesitation. "Fine by me. Let's drink." They went glass after glass. No one tried to force Aurora to drink, but they were all pushing drinks on Julian. Aurora watched his face grow paler and paler, but his friends were relentless. A knot of anxiety tightened in her stomach. Finally, as Julian reached for another glass, she took it from his hand. "I'll drink for him." In front of everyone, Aurora downed the drink in one go. Even Julian was taken aback. The harsh liquor burned its way down her throat, and a wave of nausea washed over her. Julian frowned slightly. "You can't drink?" Aurora forced a pale smile. "I can, of course I can." From then on, she drank every glass offered to Julian. By the end, even his friends were impressed. "JD, where did you find this girlfriend? She's something else." Julian smirked but didn't answer. After downing the last glass, Aurora could no longer bear the intense stomach pain and discomfort. Her face ashen, she collapsed into Julian's arms. "Had enough?" Julian asked, catching her. He received no reply. It wasn't until she mumbled deliriously that she was itchy that his expression changed. He pushed her hair back and saw that her neck was covered in a dense rash of red spots. Everyone was shocked. Holy crap, what's going on? Is she allergic to alcohol? She's allergic and she's still taking drinks for you. Is she trying to kill herself? Julian's face paled. He immediately scooped her up and rushed out of the room. Aurora was unconscious for an entire night before she finally woke up. The first thing she saw was Julian's furious glare. The doctor said not only are you allergic to alcohol, but you also have a stomach condition. Drinking is like suicide for you. Didn't you know that? Aurora shrank back, feeling wronged by his scolding. But I didn't want to see you forcing yourself to drink. You're not happy living that wild life with them, are you? Julian froze. He never expected her to see right through him. For years, he had hidden behind a facade of recklessness. Alcohol was no good, but it offered a temporary numbness. Ever since his parents divorced and started new families when he was a teenager, Julian had relied on it. But now, Aurora's soft hand clasped his. Julian, from now on, when you're unhappy, you don't have to drink. Come find me, I'll be there for you. He looked down at the weak girl in the hospital bed and couldn't stop himself from pulling her into a hug. You said it. Don't take it back. Chapter 8, Aurora spent another day in the hospital before she was finally discharged. This time, Lachlan came to pick her up. You ended up in the hospital because you were drinking for Julian? Lachlan looked displeased. Aurora remembered that while he was the coldest of the three, he was also the most prone to jealousy. Sitting in his car now, she felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. She stammered, "You know, I have amnesia, so I forgot I was allergic to alcohol." Lachlan clearly didn't believe her excuse. He drove on with a stony expression, and the atmosphere in the car was heavy with silence. Finally, the car stopped in an unfamiliar place. After getting out, she realized it was a racetrack. Lachlan turned to her. "There's something I have to get today. Once I have it, I'll take you out. Wait for me here." With that, he walked over to a man who looked like a typical rich kid. "Mr. Grayson, I knew you'd show up today with that necklace as the prize." Lachlan remained impassive. During their conversation, Aurora vaguely heard the name Penny mentioned again. Finally, the rich kid noticed Aurora, a mischievous glint in his eye. "Lachlan, we all know how good you are. It's hardly fair for you to race. How about you let the little beauty you brought with you race in your place? To be fair, we'll all have girls race for us." Both Aurora and Lachlan were taken aback. He frowned. "She can't," the rich kid smiled. "Then I'm afraid you won't be getting what you want." Lachlan's face immediately darkened. Aurora could tell he valued that prize immensely. Looking at the race cars in the distance, she felt a knot of fear in her stomach, but she wanted to help him. She raised her hand. "I can do it." Lachlan whipped his head around to look at her. Aurora masked her fear with a smile. "Don't worry, I can really do this." In the end, she changed into a racing suit. Although she had a driver's license, this was her first time in a race like this. Before getting in the car, Lachlan asked one last time, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Aurora nodded. "Don't worry. I'll definitely win you what you want." She got into the car. After the countdown, the vehicles shot forward. Aurora was an outsider in this world, and she quickly fell behind. In the stands, Lachlan's brow was furrowed with worry. But after the third lap, Aurora, who had been boxed in, suddenly accelerated wildly. The car moved so fast it seemed like it was about to take flight. The needle on her speedometer shot past 180 mph, and sparks flew as the tires screeched against the pavement. The crowd in the stands went wild. Whoa, this girl is hardcore. On the track, however, Aurora was completely unaware of the risk she was taking. On a downhill curve, she used the turn to her advantage, slamming her foot on the gas. The car shot forward at an angle, allowing her to overtake the other cars by a significant margin. On the final lap, everyone watched with bated breath. Aurora didn't slow down at all, accelerating all the way to the finish line. As she crossed, a tire slipped, and the car slammed into the guardrail. She had won, but the impact threw her hard against the steering wheel. The blow left her dizzy and disoriented, a sharp pain shooting through her head. But she ignored it, pushing through the vertigo to get out of the car. She saw the rich kid reluctantly tell Lachlan, "I'll get you the necklace after it arrives in the country." Lachlan's brow relaxed, and he nodded. He was about to go to Aurora when his phone rang. Seeing the name on the screen, his eyes lit up. After a brief conversation, he seemed to forget Aurora's condition entirely. He turned to her, his voice urgent, "I have to go. I'll see you later." Aurora clutched her head, wanting to tell him how sick she felt, but when she opened her mouth, no sound came out. Through blurry eyes, she could only watch as Lachlan left without a second thought. Just now, she had caught a glimpse of the name on his phone. Penny, was it Penelope Thorne again? For some reason, the thought of that name made her head throb even more intensely. She summoned all her strength to take a step forward, but faltered, her body swaying before she collapsed backward. The moment she fell, her head hit the ground hard. The violent pain was like an electric shock to her brain, but this time it brought with it a flood of familiar scenes. The memories she had lost, in that instant, came rushing back. She finally remembered everything. Chapter 9. Lachlan Grayson, Julian Donovan, Liam Langley. She did know these three men, but the truth was nothing like what they had told her. After starting university, she had indeed developed a secret crush on Lachlan and had left breakfast for him. One day, after leaving the breakfast, she saw him heading back to the classroom. In a panic, she hid behind a nearby curtain, and she heard the other students teasing him. "Hey Lachlan, that girl whose family picks through trash has been bringing you breakfast for a while now. Are you moved yet?" Lachlan was not, as he had claimed, eagerly awaiting her breakfast each day. At that moment, she heard him say with clear disgust, "Her food is only fit for a dog." Then, Lachlan threw the breakfast to a stray dog outside the window. No one in the classroom was surprised. They all burst out laughing. "Aurora Sterling sure has some nerve, chasing after you. Doesn't everyone know Lachlan's white moonlight is Penelope Thorne? How dare Aurora even compare herself to her? Calling her an ugly duckling is a compliment. She's a toad trying to eat swan meat, ha ha ha." And Lachlan just stood there, letting them all humiliate her. Outside the door, Aurora listened, her heart shattering into a million pieces. She stumbled away, broken. Another wave of pain washed over her. This time, she remembered Julian. She had been cornered by thugs in an alley, but he hadn't saved her. In fact, he was the one who had sent them in that dark alley. Julian had listened coolly to her desperate pleas for help, his face a mask of indifference. Finally, he had looked down at her battered and bruised form. "So you're the one who ruined Penny's dress and made her lose the competition?" "I didn't, it really wasn't me." Julian grabbed her chin, his eyes filled with malice. Ignoring her pleas, he squeezed her jaw tightly. "You dare to mess with the person I cherish?" He ground his foot onto her hand, his voice as cold as Satan's. "Keep hitting her." Aurora trembled uncontrollably, as if she were back in that agonizing night. Then, the memories of Liam flooded in. It was true she had worked at the art studio, and he had been a student there. But the one who had held up her hand in front of everyone and accused her of stealing money was Liam. Later, to keep the peace, the studio owner had fired her. That day, Aurora had begged Liam to clear her name. But the boy she had once seen as a gentle, shining light, what had he said? He had looked at her like she was trash. "You're the one who ruined Penny's dress, aren't you? You dare to make Penny unhappy and expect to keep your job? You deserve to die." Aurora remembered everything. She rose from the stands like a zombie and walked out in a daze. Lachlan, Julian, Liam, the person they had always loved was Penelope Thorne. And her entanglement with Penny had all started over a dance competition more than a month ago. For the university's centennial celebration, there was a selection for a solo dance performance. Penny, who had danced since she was a child, thought it was a guaranteed win. But to everyone's surprise, the one who captivated the judges that day was Aurora. Aurora had loved dancing since she was little. Though she couldn't afford lessons, she had taught herself by watching videos. She had a natural talent for it. After her performance, she overheard Penny's friends worrying. "Penny, that Aurora Sterling was incredible. I saw the judges giving her perfect scores. She's probably going to get the spot. What are you going to do? You can't beat her." At that moment, Penny, dressed in her beautiful dance costume, shot a cold glance at Aurora, who had just stepped off stage. Then, as she stood up, she somehow knocked over a bottle of ink on a nearby table. Just like that, her costume was ruined. Later, Penny announced she was withdrawing from the competition because of her ruined costume. But what Aurora hadn't known was that Penny had immediately gone to her 3 childhood friends and told them that Aurora had ruined her dress. But she had ruined it herself, simply because she was afraid of the shame of losing. Chapter 10. Because of that incident, Aurora found herself relentlessly targeted by the three most powerful figures on campus. One day it was Lachlan tormenting her, the next Julian playing cruel pranks, the day after Liam mocking her. She finally couldn't take it anymore and went to find Penelope to beg her to clear things up. Instead, she walked in on the three of them confessing their feelings to her. "Penny, it's been long enough. You need to tell us who you choose." Penelope feigned a conflicted expression. "I like all three of you. We grew up together. I really can't choose." She pouted playfully, then a wicked smile crossed her face. "How about this? Let's play a game. All three of you will pursue Aurora Sterling at the same time. Whoever can make her fall for them first, I'll agree to date." At the mention of her name, the three men's faces filled with disdain. But in the end, to win the heart of their white moonlight, they agreed to approach her. A week later, Aurora got into the car accident and lost her memory. And so, they seized the opportunity to claim they were her boyfriends. Remembering all this, Aurora was consumed by a pain so deep it felt like it would tear her apart. No wonder they had taken her to so many places, yet none of them had sparked any memories. Because those weren't her memories. They were their memories with Penelope, the people she had treated with such sincerity. One had ordered thugs to beat her. One had framed her and cost her her job. And one had thrown her heartfelt affection out for the dogs. Tears streamed down her face, and the pain in her heart was so intense she could barely breathe. After that, Aurora disappeared for several days. She didn't return to the apartment, nor did she answer any of their calls. Soon, the 30-day countdown was over. At school, Lachlan, Julian, and Liam stood together, their faces grim. Each of them was on their phone, relentlessly dialing Aurora's number, only to be met with the same automated message. "The number you have dialed is not available." Suddenly, a murmur rippled through the crowd. The three of them turned and saw Aurora, who had been missing for days. A wave of relief washed over them, and they rushed toward her. "Rory, where have you been? Do you have any idea how worried I was when I couldn't find you? Don't you ever disappear like that again?" Aurora looked at them quietly. If she hadn't regained her memory, she might have truly fallen for this triple dose of affection. She remained silent for a long time, but their eyes were filled with anticipation. "Rory, time's up. Since you still can't remember, you'll have to choose one of us." "That's right. Which of us do you choose? No matter who you pick, we'll respect your decision." Each of them was confident they would be the one. After all, Aurora had been so devoted to them, almost recklessly so. Each of them thought they couldn't possibly lose. After a long silence, the girl in front of them finally spoke, her voice hoarse and calm. "I don't want to choose any of you. Because, the three of you, I don't like a single one." The three men were stunned. Aurora simply pulled her hand away, her face devoid of expression, and turned to leave. Behind her, the three men's expressions turned dark and stormy. "What do we do? We have to get her to make a choice before Penny gets back." They had no intention of giving up. In fact, they were preparing an even more intense campaign to win her over. Chapter 11, but they never could have imagined that the next day, Aurora Sterling would vanish completely. They searched the entire campus, only to find out she had officially transferred. The three of them rushed to the apartment where she had been staying. It was empty. All her belongings were gone. The only things left were 3 gift boxes, neatly arranged on the coffee table. Each box had one of their names written on it. For some reason, a sense of panic gripped them, a terrible premonition. Liam opened his gift first. Inside was a painting by Stephen. That day, after she had spent the night in the rain catching 100 butterflies, Stephen had been so moved by her determination that Aurora had not only convinced him to take Liam as a student, but had also managed to commission a painting from him. She had planned to give it to Liam as a surprise on a special day. But now, that hard-won painting had been torn to shreds. Next was Julian's. His gift box contained a set of family dolls, a mother, a father, and a child. Ever since Aurora had learned about Julian's broken family, she had been secretly making them for him. She knew he longed for a family, and she wanted to give him a symbol of happiness. But now, those handcrafted dolls had been cut to pieces, a mangled mess in the box, just like his shattered family. Finally, Lachlan's box. Inside was the necklace she had won for him at the racetrack. Aurora had gone back and collected the prize herself. Such an exquisite necklace was clearly meant for Penelope Thorne, but the person who had risked her life to win it was the unknowing Aurora. Now, however, the necklace had been snapped into 5 or 6 pieces. 3 gifts, all proof of her genuine affection, all utterly destroyed. Seeing these items, the 3 men understood. There was only one reason Aurora would hate them this much. She had regained her memory. It had been a deception from the start, but now that Aurora knew the truth, a giant hand seemed to squeeze their hearts, making it almost impossible to breathe. Looking at the empty apartment and the broken gifts, the boxes fell from their hands with a thud. In that moment, a single thought consumed all 3 of them. It felt like they had lost something incredibly important, something they could never get back. 4 years later, New York City, the Grand Oceanic Hotel. Everyone in the upper echelon stratum knew that the Sterling family, one of the wealthiest in the nation, had recently found their long-lost youngest daughter. Tonight was the grand banquet they were hosting to formally reintroduce her to society, and every major family in the city was in attendance. Lachlan, Julian, and Liam were also there, representing their respective families. They sat in a corner, each staring grimly at their phones. The messages they sent were identical. "It's been 4 years. Have you found her yet?" And the replies they received were also identical. No trace. Meanwhile, the people around them were buzzing with talk of the mysterious Sterling heiress. "I heard that as soon as Miss Sterling returned, Alastair Sterling gave her that multi-billion-dollar mansion on the South Shore. Billions are nothing. He's already brought her into the Sterling group. Rumor has it, he's even considering giving her the inheritance rights. Apparently, she suffered a lot in the past, so the family is spoiling her rotten, trying to make up for it in every way they can." The 3 men finally looked up from their phones. After sending a final, keep-searching message, they listened to the gossip, a flicker of curiosity about this ridiculously pampered heiress kindling within them. The Sterling family's fortune was immense. Could they really be giving it all to one young woman? Just then, the lights in the ballroom dimmed, leaving only a single spotlight. The host took the microphone. "And now, let us welcome Miss Sterling to the stage for a few words." Amid a wave of enthusiastic applause, a set of glass doors swung open. Flanked by a host of bodyguards, the elderly Chairman Sterling lovingly escorted a young woman onto the stage. As her gown swayed, the crowd craned their necks, eager to catch a glimpse of the Sterling heiress. Lachlan, Julian, and Liam casually looked up as well. The young woman reached the center of the stage, and the spotlight bathed her in its beautiful glow, illuminating her face. In that instant, the 3 men's pupils constricted. They simultaneously crushed the champagne flutes in their hands. On the stage, the young woman, dressed in a black, star-dusted gown, smiled radiantly. "Good evening, everyone. I am the recently found youngest daughter of the Sterling family. My name is Aurora Sterling." Chapter 12. Aurora Sterling had changed. That was the one thought that echoed in the minds of all 3 men. 4 years was enough time to completely transform a person. Even though her face was the same, her metamorphosis was staggering. She looked like a noble and proud black swan, her elegant neck and straight back creating a posture of impeccable grace. Even with the eyes of so many powerful figures upon her, she showed not a hint of nervousness. For a moment, the 3 men were lost in a daze. Had the Aurora of the past truly been this beautiful? They couldn't reconcile the timid, gentle girl they remembered with this poised and magnanimous heiress of the Sterling family. But the reality was right before their eyes. They had to admit, Aurora Sterling was the same Aurora. "I want to thank the chairman of the Sterling family, my grandfather, for rescuing me from a life of hardship. I love my family. And I thank all of you for gracing this banquet with your presence. On behalf of the Sterling family, I offer my sincerest gratitude. I hope we can all work towards a brighter future together." Though her speech was formal, it conveyed great respect to the guests. After all, the Sterling family was one of the most prominent in the city, and being invited was an honor in itself. Moreover, anyone with a keen ear could understand the subtext of her words. Many of the powerful guests privately mused that Chairman Sterling must hold this young, but remarkably capable granddaughter in extremely high regard. Allowing her to speak on behalf of the family was a profound show of trust and admiration. The applause was thunderous, elevating the atmosphere of the banquet. Chairman Sterling was clearly pleased with his granddaughter's speech. His smile was broad and genuine as he took the microphone. "Aurora is the youngest in our family, But as you can all see, she is exceptionally talented. From now on, she will be working as my executive assistant at the Sterling Group, learning the ropes. I trust you will all get to know her well." Everyone knew that the Sterling Group, in both business and family matters, was known for its decisive and firm approach. It was rare to see such a warm and affectionate side of the chairman. The extent of Aurora's favor was undeniable. Liam, who had joined his family's business after graduation and had dealings with the Sterlings, stared blankly at the stunningly beautiful Aurora under the spotlight, a whirlwind of indescribable emotions churning within him. If they had known back then that she was the Sterling heiress who would have dared to bully her. Lachlan was clearly thinking the same thing. His expression soured as he took a sip of his wine. I wonder if Aurora remembers what happened back then. Their families all had business dealings that relied on the Sterlings. If some youthful indiscretion were to affect their interests, the consequences would be severe. Julian, however, frowned. If Miss Sterling can't handle something that small, then the Sterling family is done for. Don't worry. The old man might be old, but his eyes are sharp. Besides, the Sterlings need our supply chains too, don't they? Mr. Donovan is right. A clear, melodic female voice, like a mountain spring, cut through the din of the banquet. I won't hold any grudges over trivial matters from the past. Please rest assured. Caught talking about her behind her back, the three men were momentarily embarrassed. Liam was the first to speak. I apologize, Miss Sterling. Please call me Aurora. Why be so formal? Aurora, however, was not as unapproachably regal as she had been on stage. She curved her lips into a sweet smile. I was under your care in the past. I hope we can all get along in the future. Chapter 13. As the banquet wound down and guests began to depart, many started tasking their people with investigating Aurora Sterling's background. Lachlan was no exception. Her decision to drop out of university back then had been a complete shock. Given her impoverished background, getting into Kingston University was a testament to her academic brilliance. No one could believe she would throw away an opportunity she had worked over a decade for. But she had left so easily, vanishing like a drop of morning dew. Over the years, Lachlan had been tormented by her disappearance. He remembered how she had been ostracized by so many, yet had stubbornly clung to her studies at the prestigious university. They had gone too far. Their actions were what had driven her away. He had sent people to find her, but they had always come back empty-handed. It would likely be the same this time. Lachlan thought for a moment and sent a message to Julian. Did you find anything on Aurora Sterling's history? Julian, clearly just as invested, replied quickly. Nothing specific. But after she dropped out of Kingston, she got a visa to go abroad. Seems like she was out of the country for several years. Can't find anything more detailed. It's like she didn't exist. Of Lachlan's acquaintances, only the Donovan family was in the tech industry. If even Julian could only find whispers and traces, then there was truly no other way. Aurora, of course, knew that her return would attract a great deal of attention, but she didn't care. Chairman Sterling had scrubbed her records clean. No one would find out that she hadn't just been found by the family recently. 4 years ago, a hate-filled Aurora had left Kingston University. Her initial plan was simply to transfer to another school and live an ordinary life. While packing her grandmother's belongings and her own, she found a glittering gold bracelet hidden deep inside a cabinet. It was exquisitely made, but the band was tiny, clearly meant for a small child. Beneath the bracelet was a letter. Her grandmother hadn't been well educated and could only write basic words. Rory, my sweet baby, this bracelet was on you when I found you. You were so small, lying in a pile of trash, your cries almost gone. People who passed by only cared to check if you were a boy or a girl. No one noticed the little hand wrapped in your clothes, wearing this shiny thing. I didn't know if it was real or fake. I'm an old woman, what if I got scammed? So I hid it as soon as I brought you home. If it's real, you can use it to get some money when you grow up. If it's fake, it doesn't matter. Grandma can raise you without it. The note was small and full of misspelled words. Her grandmother's eyesight had been poor. Aurora could almost picture her, hunched over, painstakingly writing this letter with a scavenged pencil. In that moment, an unprecedented wave of grief washed over her. She clutched the bracelet and sobbed. She hated those 3 men with every fiber of her being. What they saw as a trivial game had cost her the chance to ever see her loving grandmother again. Perhaps because her grandmother hadn't dared to look too closely, she had missed the inscription on the inner band of the bracelet. But Aurora saw it. It read, Jiang Yao, daughter of the Jiang family, born in the year of the dragon, October. Her family name was Jiang. Aurora was a name her grandmother had given her, using her own surname. Her age was about what her grandmother had estimated. What kind of family would give their child such a precious item, only to abandon them? The thought struck Aurora immediately. After some investigation, she discovered the unbelievable truth. She was the long-lost daughter the Sterling Jiang family had been searching for 18 years. She had been abandoned in a remote area with no security cameras. The person responsible was her mother's personal maid, which had made the search incredibly difficult for the Sterling family. And so, the mystery was solved. The family wanted her to take back her original name, Jiang Yao, but Aurora felt that Aurora was the last gift her grandmother had given her. She was only willing to change her surname. Faced with this child who was lost and now found, Chairman Sterling felt nothing but immense gratitude and didn't push the matter. Chapter 14, the Sterling family should have announced Aurora's return 4 years ago. But she knew that in her state back then, aside from the love and blessings of her family, all she would have received from strangers were sneers about her good luck. So she chose to go abroad in silence. In those 4 years, Aurora worked tirelessly to earn a finance degree from an Ivy League university. She participated in numerous volunteer activities to improve her public speaking skills, building a resume so impressive it put her older siblings to shame. She had always been a diligent and intelligent person. Seeing her excellence, Chairman Sterling had already begun to see her as his future successor. 4 years later, she returned with a hard-earned, legitimate degree, finally stepping into the spotlight. Just as she had anticipated, if she had been nothing, people's attention would have only been on the Sterling family behind her. But now that she was dazzling in her own right, being the Sterling heiress was just one of her many strengths. Aurora closed her eyes, letting a maid remove her makeup, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. She had pushed herself so hard because she knew one thing: no matter how much he doted on her, Chairman Sterling would not abandon his business partnerships with the Grayson, Donovan, and Langley families over some personal grudge from the past. In the eyes of a businessman, profit comes first, but her goal was to crush everyone who had ever humiliated her. To do that, Aurora had to become the one holding the real power. No one would be spared. "Miss, you can go for your bath now." The moment she opened her eyes, she met the maid's gaze. The coldness in her eyes made the maid shiver. But just as quickly, the usually kind Miss Sterling smiled faintly, as if the chill had just been her imagination. "Thank you," Aurora said, her mood improving. "You have a very gentle touch." The maid watched her graceful figure, long legs, slender waist recede, and only came back to her senses a moment later, flattered. "I'd love to help you with your makeup again next time," an older maid nearby chuckled. "Of course. Miss has such beautiful skin, she's so gorgeous, and her temperament is so good. It's a pleasure to assist her." Life in the Sterling household was the epitome of luxury. It had taken Aurora a full 4 years to get used to a life where she didn't even have to wash her own face. The bathtub was always drawn, filled with expensive bath bombs. The food on the table looked simple, but the ingredients were astronomically priced. The haute couture gowns and suits she wore were worth unimaginable sums. But as Aurora submerged her face in the water, what she thought of was her grandmother, waking her up on cold winter mornings with a warm, damp towel. Perhaps because she had seen those people today, Aurora felt exceptionally tired. For 4 years, she had hated them every single moment. Amidst her grueling studies, she had imagined 1,000 ways to make them suffer, to make them understand the pain she had felt. But right now, her opinions and desires didn't count. Chairman Sterling saw her impatience at a glance. After dinner, he called her into his study. He looked at his granddaughter, who had blossomed into a poised young woman, and sighed. "Aurora, ambition is a good thing, but being too eager for success can leave you vulnerable to your enemies. Your older siblings and even your parents have no interest in business. They're all romantic idealists. The moment I saw you, I felt that this family finally had someone like me, a pillar strong enough to support everyone. You're a smart child. I won't lecture you too much, Just take your time." That night, Aurora tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Her grandfather didn't want her to move too quickly in the business world, but that didn't mean she had no other way to deal with them. She pulled the covers up, her long, silky hair spread across the pillow, reflecting the soft moonlight. "I'm sorry, Grandpa," she thought. "I'm going to have to disappoint you." Chapter 15. At the height of her popularity, when all eyes were on her, Miss Aurora Sterling did not disappoint. She suddenly announced that she was organizing an art exhibition. In the invitation, she stated that to thank the Sterling family for never giving up the search for her, all proceeds from the exhibition would be donated to non-profit organizations that help reunite families. She also sincerely invited artists to submit their work, promising generous compensation from the Sterling family. The announcement was met with widespread praise. While it was unclear how many were truly sincere, on the surface, everyone eagerly replied that they would attend. The Langley family naturally received an invitation as well. Looking at Aurora, who now seemed capable of commanding any situation, Liam was lost in thought for a moment. He remembered the girl from years ago, drenched in rain and looking utterly wretched, yet still beaming with joy for his sake. A warmth spread through his chest. Although he had stopped studying with Stephen 2 years ago, no matter how hard Aurora had pushed, she couldn't change the fact that he lacked the spark to advance further in his art. What had Stephen said back then? Right. He had said, "The butterflies of Deer Hall Mountain are beautiful, but this is as far as you can go on this path." Since then, Liam hadn't picked up a paintbrush. But now, seeing that Aurora needed artists' works for her exhibition, the long dormant flame in his heart began to flicker and burn. He had done wrong back then. Even though Aurora had said she forgave him, if he could do something meaningful for her, she would surely be even happier, right? While Liam was still hesitating, he received a text message from an unknown number. "Your paintings are so good, and you were mentored by a great artist. Will you be submitting a piece?" No one else could have known about that except Aurora. Liam touched his chest, where an unparalleled warmth was blooming. Aurora hadn't changed. Even as the Sterling heiress, she was still that kind-hearted girl. Why had he treated a girl like that back then? His younger self, so full of youthful arrogance and quick to anger for another woman, was so childish. But Liam forgot that 4 years ago, he had been 21, long past the age of a child. He immediately ordered his staff to gather the finest art supplies to show Aurora how much he valued this. After saving her number, he carefully composed a reply. "I will come. But I'm not doing it for fame or money, so I'll submit it anonymously." I hope you can guess which one is mine. Liam's young nephew had once seen his uncle's impressive painting skills and had pestered him to take art classes. Sometimes, Liam would pick him up from the studio. He remembered seeing Aurora there, wearing a simple apron, moving among the focused little faces, changing the dirty water in their buckets. Even though it was hard, messy work, Aurora's eyes always sparkled. She loved painting, so she didn't find the work a hardship. The memory of those bright eyes, full of longing for her passion, was still vivid in Liam's mind, making his heart burn. He suddenly had an inspiration. Not waiting for the supplies to arrive, he sat down on the floor and began sketching with a pencil. After finishing the initial draft in one go, he sent it to the number with a joyful heart, a faint blush on his cheeks. "You are my muse." Even though a great artist had told him he had no potential for further growth, his years of practice had not been for nothing. With just a few strokes, he had sketched a girl in a headscarf and apron, standing with a paintbrush in hand. There was no immediate reply, but Liam didn't feel angry at all. He had done so many terrible things in the past, yet Aurora had magnanimously forgiven him. What right did he have to be dissatisfied? Chapter 16. The art exhibition, still in its preliminary stages, was already creating a significant buzz. Aurora had announced that several famous artists would be present to discuss their own works, offering a rare treat for art lovers. This, combined with its charitable purpose, attracted the interest of many influential connoisseurs. Liam poured all his energy into the painting he intended to submit, so much so that he even missed Julian Donovan's birthday party. After so many years of friendship, Julian wasn't angry over such a small thing. He just laughed and teased him over the phone. "What have you been up to lately? So mysterious, and you won't say a word. Got a new girlfriend?" Liam's heart skipped a beat. He thought of Aurora's face and the special favor she seemed to show him clearly. Lachlan and Julian hadn't received personal invitations to submit their work. He quickly denied it, though his smile felt a bit forced. No, you'll see soon enough. Sorry about this, I'll make it up to you on your next birthday. I'll have someone send your gift over. Julian huffed and hung up. The moment the call ended, his annoyed expression vanished, replaced by a wide grin. He hadn't actually wanted Liam to come. This was perfect. He was 24 now, and his father was constantly pressuring him to find a partner. For someone from a prominent family, was there really such a thing as freedom to love? He'd been on countless blind dates, but his inherent fear of intimacy, rooted in his family's past, and his dissatisfaction with every candidate, had led to nothing. Until he saw the transformed Aurora Sterling. 4 years ago, they had hurt that beautiful, kind, and gentle girl just to please Penelope Thorne. In the end, none of them got what they wanted, because Penelope had never loved any of them. She was just amusing herself. In fact, right after Aurora left school, Penelope had enrolled in a professional dance academy abroad and left without a backward glance. If only he had known Aurora was a Sterling, Julian bit his lip. He would have definitely been with Aurora, instead of wasting his youth on a heartless woman like Penelope. Seeing Aurora's name on the invitation list, Julian wished his birthday could come sooner. The Donovan family was a well-known power in the city, and the party was attended by many. Aurora's attire tonight was completely different from their last meeting. She wore a high-end, black tulle, strapless mini dress with a slightly flared skirt embroidered with flowing silver threads. Her entrance stunned the room. She handed her gift to Julian, gave a slight nod, and her wavy hair cascaded over her bare shoulder, leaving a fragrant trail. "Happy birthday!" Julian's heart pounded in his chest. "Thank you. You look beautiful tonight." Aurora smiled graciously. As she took her seat, she didn't notice a woman in the corner, wearing a strikingly similar dress, clutching her skirt and staring daggers at her. Julian happened to walk over to greet her and froze when he saw her expression. "Penny, what's wrong?" Penelope Thorne quickly forced a smile. "JD, that person is dressed so much like me." Julian's gaze shifted between her dress and Aurora's. As a man, he couldn't really tell the difference. He patted her hand. "That's Aurora Sterling, don't you remember her?" Penelope's eyes widened, and her voice became uncontrollably shrill. "Aurora Sterling? Impossible, that can't be Aurora." The Aurora I knew was a hick from the sticks. At that exact moment, the soft music paused, and her outburst echoed through the nearly silent room. Everyone turned to look at Aurora, who was politely chatting with Julian's father. Unexpectedly, Aurora merely paused for a second. Ignoring the awkward looks on Mr. and Mrs. Donovan's faces, she finished her well wishes with a smile. It was instantly clear who was in need of an etiquette lesson. Chapter 17. Penelope, completely oblivious to Julian's hesitant expression, marched towards Aurora. Her eyes landed on her dress, and a sneer escaped her lips. In her mind, Aurora was still the poor girl who had grown up with a trash collector. She had no idea how she had managed to get into tonight's party, but this dress was the latest from a luxury brand. How could Aurora possibly afford it? Besides, their dresses were so different. Hers was bought with real money. Aurora's must be a fake. Seeing Aurora's calm demeanor, Penelope was convinced she was faking it. "Aurora, you like this designer too? What a coincidence," she said playfully. "But why does yours look different from mine? You didn't spend a fortune on a counterfeit, did you?" Aurora remained silent, slightly surprised to see Penelope here. This only made Penelope more smug. "Or maybe," she drawled, "you knew it was fake and wore it anyway for the sake of vanity. You shouldn't try so hard to fit in where you don't belong." Aurora whispers rippled through the crowd. Imagining them all mocking Aurora, Penelope lifted her chin and smiled. "How about I buy you a real one? It's a bit pricey, but it's only about 2 weeks of my allowance. Do you know why mine is different from yours?" Aurora cut her off. "Because mine is the custom runway piece, and yours is from the ready-to-wear line." Penelope stared at her, stunned. She knew luxury brands had custom and commercial lines, but she couldn't help but laugh out loud. You think you're worthy?" The Donovan's guests looked at her as if she had lost her mind. Standing before her was the much-talked-about heiress of the Sterling family. The Sterlings were one of the top 3 wealthiest families in the city. If Aurora Sterling wasn't worthy of wearing it, then who was? Julian finally couldn't take it anymore. He grabbed her arm and hissed, "Penny, what are you doing? You just got back from abroad, you don't know." The Sterling family found their daughter who was lost for over a decade. Her name isn't just Aurora anymore, it's Aurora Sterling. Before he could finish, Penelope stumbled, nearly falling into his arms. Mortified, Julian pushed her away and turned to Aurora. "I'm so sorry, Aurora. I think she misunderstood." Aurora waved her hand dismissively, a small smile playing on her lips. "It's fine. The Thorne and Sterling families have always been on good terms. It's a small matter. But perhaps someone should remind Mr. Thorne that Penny isn't a child anymore. Her emotional intelligence seems a bit lacking." A subtle chill emanated from her words, and everyone understood the Thorne family was going to suffer because of this tactless daughter. The most embarrassed person in the room was Julian's father. He had invited Aurora, and now she was being publicly humiliated in his home. He quickly had someone escort Penelope to a quiet corner. He and Julian approached Aurora to apologize. She clinked her glass against his and said with a light laugh, "It's nothing, really. Julian, please don't let a small interruption ruin your night." Her gentle and forgiving nature made Julian blush. Mr. Donovan's eyes darted between them, and a knowing smile spread across his face. "Listening to you two, it seems you're old acquaintances." "Classmates. Was Aurora at Kingston as well? What a brilliant young woman." A shadow passed over Aurora's eyes, but it was gone in an instant. "Julian and I were fortunate enough to be classmates for half a year. Then, for personal reasons, I had to drop out and go abroad." Julian flinched. He finally remembered how he had treated Aurora back then. He had even had her beaten up for that fool, Penelope. A tidal wave of guilt washed over him. Looking into Aurora's beautiful eyes, he blurted out, "Aurora, I'm willing to make it up to you. I'll treat you right for the rest of my life." Chapter 18, Julian. Aurora said his name with a slightly heavier tone, but her voice remained unhurried. Her smiling eyes seemed to see right through him. "The past is in the past. Let's look forward, shall we?" Julian could only nod. The party was less than perfect, not just because of the disruptive Penelope, but also due to Lachlan's late arrival. He looked at Aurora, who was stunning even with minimal makeup, and a flicker of admiration crossed his face. Julian nudged him in the chest. "Off playing with your race cars again? You've got 9 lives. Your mouth runs wild even on your birthday, you jerk," Lachlan retorted. He tilted his chin towards Aurora. "Hey, how did you get the Sterling heiress to grace your birthday party?" Julian rubbed his face. "Maybe it's my good looks, but seriously, Aurora is such a kind person. After all the monstrous things we did back then, I thought she'd hate us forever." Lachlan sighed in agreement. He had arrived too late and hadn't had a chance to speak with Aurora. She gave him a polite nod as she passed, her long hair brushing past him, leaving a captivating scent in its wake. Lachlan smiled slightly. "So it's that one? Good taste." Aurora heard him but didn't respond, simply continuing on her way. Julian asked curiously, "You can identify a perfume just by its scent. That's impressive." "I can't with common street perfumes, of course," Lachlan said lazily. "But I know this one. It's a limited anniversary edition from a top luxury brand. Only 20 bottles worldwide, costs a fortune." Julian was taken aback. "That expensive? Well, I think it suits her." It does," Lachlan said, watching her get into her car without a backward glance. "You know what? When people get nervous, their body temperature rises and the perfume intensifies. I'd love to have her in the passenger seat of my race car, just to smell how intoxicating she'd be on the turns." Aside from Penelope, this was the first time Lachlan had ever wanted to invite a woman to ride with him. Julian's expression was complicated. Liam only found out much later that Aurora had also attended the party. He wasn't like other artists who could produce a painting at a moment's notice. Picking up a brush again after 2 years was harder than he had imagined. He had painstakingly applied varnish to his canvas, rushing to ensure it would be dry in time for the exhibition in 2 months. When he heard that the other two had already spent time with Aurora, he was furious. Lachlan was much more thick-skinned than Julian. Not only was he unashamed, but he also showed off on his messaging app that he had added Aurora as a contact. "I'm taking her to a race," Lachlan announced. "With her by my side, no one can beat me." Julian's eyes widened. "She agreed," Lachlan replied. "She's considering it." Liam felt a sour knot in his stomach. In college, they had all fallen for the same person. He never thought it would happen again now that they were old enough to settle down. He took a deep breath, looking at the gentle, downcast eyes of the girl on his canvas. He remembered the special favor Aurora had shown him and said quietly, "Then may the best man win." Liam had heard that Aurora's biological mother was also an oil painter. Full of confidence, he believed Aurora would surely appreciate his work. While they were secretly competing, Aurora's life was anything but idle. She had just returned to the country and had taken on the task of organizing the art exhibition, building a reputation for herself as a philanthropist, pleasing her artist mother, and earning her grandfather's approval all at once. Although she couldn't immediately step into the core of the group, she had already begun to study the company's shareholding structure and main business operations. Chairman Sterling was still in good health, so he wasn't in a hurry to hand over the reins. He kept his granddaughter close, giving her projects that only the most trusted family members would handle, to train her. She handled multiple major tasks without flinching, becoming more composed and calm. The resemblance in temperament between her and her grandfather was striking, though Aurora, being younger, was still a bit green. The old man was extremely pleased with her. Finally finishing her work for the day, Aurora stretched her sore neck and closed her laptop. Her phone buzzed with a notification. She glanced at it. The caller ID read, "Lachlan Grayson. Want to go for a mountain run?" Chapter 19. Rich kids who played with cars were a dime a dozen, but few were as reckless as Lachlan Grayson. The driver dutifully dropped her off. A slender figure in a denim jacket and cut-off shorts stepped out of the car. Lachlan's pack of friends let out a chorus of whistles. Lachlan smirked. "Shut up, you animals, she's with me. You don't stand a chance." He considerately led Aurora over to his crew, draping an arm over her shoulder. "Not gonna bother with introductions, since you'll never get her number anyway. It's 2v2 today, co-drivers are mandatory. I told you guys already." Another man, just as extravagantly dressed, took a drag from his cigarette and laughed. "Listen to you, Mr. Big Shot. What's a single guy like me supposed to do?" Aurora glanced at him. It was the same guy who had used the necklace to bait Lachlan into a race years ago. "Whose fault is it you're single?" "Your own," Lachlan said dismissively. He tilted his head. "Miss Sterling, you're not scared, are you?" "Scared?" Aurora raised an eyebrow. "I've driven this mountain road before. What's there to be scared of?" Lachlan was taken aback. The memory of that long-ago race surfaced, and he felt a rare twinge of embarrassment. Brave. Aurora was wearing that perfume again today, but he didn't know where she had applied it. The scent wasn't overpowering, just a subtle fragrance that filled the car, making him want to sniff around. "Are you a dog?" Aurora asked, buckling her seatbelt. She couldn't avoid his proximity and frowned. "You're not this rude to anyone else, Miss Sterling," Lachlan pouted, but secretly he was thrilled by this special treatment. What man who loved racing would prefer a delicate, fragile personality? Aurora's eyes were naturally alluring, but she usually kept her long lashes lowered, maintaining a calm facade. With him, however, she was all sharp glares and fiery spirit, a captivating sight that made his heart race. The car in front revved its engine. Aurora said coldly, "Less talk. If you lose, we don't need to see each other again, it's too embarrassing." Lachlan had taken other women on mountain runs over the years, but they had all, without exception, put on a brave face only to start screaming and begging him to slow down once the race began. Only Aurora, sitting in the passenger seat, dared to tell him not to lose. Why hadn't he noticed how fascinating she was back in college? Lachlan wondered idly, then slammed his foot on the gas. He had driven this road thousands of times and could even spare the attention to watch her expression. Just as she had claimed, amid the deafening roar of the engine, her beautiful eyes only flickered slightly, showing no fear. It was only when they took a sharp turn, without slowing down, that Lachlan suddenly caught that intoxicating scent. It was her rising body temperature, triggered by the excitement that had intensified the fragrance. It was almost dizzying. He floored it, overtaking everyone. The tires spun in the air as they hit a patch of gravel. Aurora finally couldn't hold back and yelled, "Lachlan, are you insane?" The car screeched to a halt. They were in first place. Amid the cheers, Aurora stormed out of the car. Lachlan chased after her, trying to explain, "It's fine, I know this road." Before he could finish, Aurora grabbed him by the collar. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement, her face vibrantly alive as she pulled him closer. A soft pressure met his lips. At the same time, the scent that had haunted his dreams exploded in his senses. She had sprayed the perfume on her lingerie, that's why it was so potent at this close range. Lachlan closed his eyes, his fingers tangling in her hair, and kissed her back, fiercely and possessively. Chapter 20. You kiss and run? Take some responsibility. Answer me. Now, pay my medical bills. You slapped my ear so hard I think I'm deaf. The phone buzzed incessantly. Aurora met her grandfather's questioning gaze and calmly turned it off. Seeing someone? Chairman Sterling asked casually, looking over the event plan she had submitted. If you want to date, then date. There's no need to worry. No one would dare bully you. Just spam messages, Aurora said lightly. Nothing to worry about. Since she put it that way, the old man didn't press further. He looked at the flawless proposal and nodded in satisfaction. I didn't expect you to get Stephen to attend. Excellent. Have you started the promotional campaign? No, Aurora shook her head. Stephen is the surprise guest. Anyone with a genuine interest will be thrilled by the unexpected reveal. Besides, the main purpose of this exhibition is charity. Fame is secondary. Grandpa, you taught me not to be too eager for quick success. The old man chuckled. Good child, you're quite farsighted. You make me look short-sighted. Yes, we're not trying to make money from this exhibition. We're not trying to make money, Aurora thought, but we are trying to get revenge. She smiled and sat with her grandfather for a while before returning to her room. The moment she turned her phone on, it was flooded with messages and missed calls. Besides Lachlan, there was also an unknown number. Ever since she had kissed Lachlan on the mountain road, even though she had slapped him afterward, he had stuck to her like glue. Aurora knew this move would be effective on him, but she hadn't expected it to be this effective. It was giving her a headache. She blocked the number Lachlan was relentlessly calling from and replied to the text from the unknown number. Who is this? The reply was swift. I can get first place on a mountain run too. If you're in my passenger seat next time, is the prize a kiss? The fish had taken the bait. Aurora looked down at the blinking cursor on the screen and typed a few words. We'll see how you perform. The person added her as a contact through her number. It was, as expected, Lachlan's old rival. She hadn't recognized his face, but the name Reese Hawthorne immediately rang a bell. The city was a melting pot of all sorts, and Reese's family, the Hawthornes, did business on both sides of the law. Their hands were dirty. Using someone like him was dangerous, but the potential rewards were great. He sent another message. There's a run next week, coming. Your boyfriend won't be there. Aurora was slightly amused by his shameless attempt to poach her. She replied, busy, and he's not my boyfriend. Guess why he's not coming? Why? I'm hosting an art exhibition. He's on the guest list. I want an invitation too. Chapter 21, that wasn't a problem. There would be security at the exhibition. Aurora wasn't worried about him causing trouble. Besides, her trap was about to spring. The more people from their circle there to witness it, the better. The venue was a massive hall. To achieve the desired effect, Aurora had given the interior design team an almost unlimited budget. The high, domed ceiling was artfully lit, and the paintings were arranged by genre and artistic style on different levels. Artistic decorations were placed throughout, and even the seating was cleverly designed to match the exhibition's aesthetic. Aurora stood at the entrance, greeting guests and the media. She wore a sincere but not overly effusive smile, dressed in a black and white ensemble with her long hair tied back, exuding a new kind of intellectual beauty. Facing the flashing cameras, she was poised and at ease. Thank you for attending this exhibition. I hope you all find beauty in the art. I won't say any more. Please proceed in an orderly fashion and enjoy the experience. Among the guests were many seasoned artists, but even they gasped in surprise upon entering the hall. The reason was simple. The Sterling family had spared no expense. Most of the exhibits had no descriptions, allowing visitors to quietly appreciate the art. Many pieces had the artist's name displayed below. If a piece caught someone's eye, they could note the number, register with the staff at the front desk, and pay a deposit. The artwork would be theirs after the exhibition ended. Whether out of a genuine connection with the art or a desire to support the Sterlings, by the end of the first round, many pieces were already marked as sold. Some were even slated for auction later, due to high demand. Liam weaved through the exhibits, searching for his own work. He had poured his heart and soul into that painting, admiring it reluctantly before submitting it. But he was still afraid that, among the works of so many artists, his wouldn't measure up, so he had chosen to remain anonymous to avoid embarrassment. At worst, he could buy it back himself and give it to Aurora. With that thought, he finally reached the oil painting section. To his surprise, his painting already had several auction bids placed on it. Delighted, Liam hurried to the front desk to register his own bid. He was surprised to find Aurora there, with a furious Lachlan and a helpless-looking Julian in tow. "Calm down," Aurora said, sounding weary. "It would be so embarrassing to cause a scene in a place like this." Liam nervously clenched his fists. He knew Lachlan's temper. Who would dare speak to him like that? But unexpectedly, Lachlan, like a dog that had been placated, actually quieted down. Chapter 22, "I'll listen to you, but after this you have to come find me. We need to talk about that day," Lachlan said, sounding slightly aggrieved. He squeezed Aurora's fingers, but she slapped his hand away without a second thought. Was this the Lachlan he knew? Not only was Liam shocked, but Julian also looked like he wanted to say something but couldn't. They exchanged a look, both understanding the situation perfectly. Liam only showed that kind of expression when he was in love. Another rival had joined the fray. Both men sighed. Aurora looked at the number Liam was registering and smiled. "You like this painting? It's very well done. Several people have asked about it this morning." A flicker of surprise crossed Liam's face. Why did Aurora sound like she had no idea who he was? He had even shown her the initial sketch. But seeing the curious gazes of the other two, he assumed she was protecting his anonymity. "Do you want to go take a look together?" Aurora shook her head regretfully. "I'd love to, but lunch is about to be served, and I have artists to entertain afterward." The exhibition was held next to a 5-star hotel. Not only was there a lavish buffet, but guests could also use their ticket stubs to get a room for a rest, a clear demonstration of the Sterling family's wealth. Though most attendees were not short on money, the thoughtful hospitality earned Aurora high praise for her meticulous planning. After lunch, someone couldn't resist asking, "Miss Sterling, you mentioned earlier that there would be a little surprise in the exhibition. I've been walking around all morning and noticed that one gallery is temporarily closed. Is that the surprise?" Aurora wiped her lips and smiled. "You're right. The closed gallery is the surprise I wanted to share with you all. If you love art, you won't want to miss it. The reveal will be this afternoon." Some people guessed it might be a spectacular piece of art, but a vague sense of dread washed over Liam. The break passed quickly, and everyone followed Aurora to the gallery, where the centerpiece was veiled in a thin cloth. The lights dimmed, then slowly brightened like a gentle tide. The white cloth covering the nearly life-sized painting in the center of the room fell away, and the crowd gasped. The oil painting's brushstrokes were gentle and delicate, a testament to the artist's profound skill. But what captivated everyone was the girl's expressive eyes. She stood in a windswept field of flowers, holding a pickaxe, her gaze fixed on the viewer. Her expression conveyed a mix of infinite longing and sorrow, making one want to know her story. At that moment, Stephen stepped out from behind the curtain. The notoriously arrogant artist saw the crowd's mesmerized expressions and smiled smugly. Chapter 23, finally, someone recognized him and exclaimed, "Mr. Stephen, this piece is by Mr. Stephen. The Sterling family is truly incredible. No wonder it's so soulful. Oh my God, I want to buy it for my collection." His paintings sell for no less than $3 million at international auctions. This one looks like it took a lot of effort. There will probably be a lot of bidders. Stephen smiled and waved his hand. "Not for sale, not for sale. This is my masterpiece. I'm keeping it for my personal collection." A chorus of disappointed sighs filled the room. Many people were already taking out their cameras, while others went up to ask for his autograph. Amid the peaceful scene, only Liam took a small step back, his face pale, cold sweat pouring down his forehead. From across the room, Aurora's gaze fell upon him, and she smiled faintly. Suddenly, a small voice murmured, "Why does the composition of this painting feel so familiar?" Someone else agreed, "Me too, and I think I saw it in this exhibition today. Let me check my photos." Liam's heart felt like it was being roasted over a fire. He wanted to run, but with everyone gathered here, his departure would be too conspicuous. His mind raced. For a moment, he wondered why Stephen's painting was almost identical to his, from the subject matter to the pose. Then, he reminded himself that his painting was anonymous, and besides, he was innocent. He hadn't plagiarized. The murmurs of suspicion grew louder, even reaching Stephen. An artist's reputation is ruined by any association with plagiarism. He immediately frowned and strode over. "What? Let me see," the person he confronted said timidly. "Master, there's an unsigned painting outside that looks a lot like yours, even the brushstrokes are similar." Because Stephen had once mentored him, Aurora stepped forward at the right moment, coming to the person's defense. "Do you remember where it is? Can you show us?" The girl was just a young reporter. She was flattered that the great Miss Sterling was speaking to her so gently. "Yes, I even placed a bid on it. It's also in the oil painting gallery, very close to here." Liam had once been a serious art student. He knew the gravity of plagiarism. What good was a powerful family background? Your reputation could be destroyed in an instant. He was determined to leave, but then Aurora saw him and said with concern, "You were planning to bid on that painting too, weren't you? Want to come see?" All eyes turned to him. Leaving was no longer an option. Even Stephen frowned at him, a flicker of recognition in his eyes. They followed the young reporter to the painting. It didn't take a professional to see the similarities between the two works. Apart from one girl painting and the other in a field of flowers, even the way they held the brush and the pickaxe was strikingly similar. Stephen was furious. He marched up to Aurora and demanded, "What is going on here? Why would you bring a painting with suspected plagiarism to this exhibition and display it alongside my work? This is an insult." Chapter 24. Aurora's expression soured, but she tried to placate him. "Please don't be hasty. Perhaps we should contact the original artist. It might just be a coincidence." A staff member approached and whispered something in her ear. Aurora's expression grew troubled. "What do you mean it's anonymous? Is there no contact information?" After receiving a negative answer, she sighed and turned to Stephen. "I'm sorry, this is indeed our fault. Please try to remain calm." Stephen snorted. "Can't contact them? Fine, burn it, destroy it. A work like this doesn't deserve to be displayed next to mine." Liam's pupils contracted. He didn't think it was plagiarism, it was just a coincidence that he had painted a similar pose, and he even had a source of inspiration for the composition. But should he really step forward and admit the painting was his? Aurora wasn't far from him, so he heard her soft sigh. "What a pity, this painting is quite beautiful too, but Mr. Stephen has a point. Someone, please take it down and burn it." The person in the painting is you, Liam thought. "You know that, don't you? Why are you pretending you don't know who the artist is?" Seeing someone actually start to remove the painting from the wall, he gritted his teeth, took a step forward, and said to Aurora, "I painted this, and I did not plagiarize." His voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. Some members of the media were already raising their cameras, recording this breaking news. The Langley family wasn't as famous as the Sterlings, but it was still enough to cause a stir. Many recognized him as the eldest son of the Langley family. Julian tugged on his sleeve. "Are you crazy?" Liam looked at Aurora's stunned expression, a wave of indignation washing over him. He shook off Julian's hand and stepped closer to her. "You saw me sketch this, didn't you? Do you also think I plagiarized?" Aurora looked bewildered. "Mr. Langley, I didn't." A tall man stepped out from the crowd. He had a roguish smile, but his expression was stern. He stood in front of Aurora, his dark eyes looking down at Liam, forcing him to take a step back. "If you're going to make accusations, you need proof. Where is it?" It was Reese Hawthorne. Liam looked at Aurora's genuine confusion, gritted his teeth, and held up his phone, displaying the previous text messages. Aurora glanced at the phone number and stated firmly, "I didn't send that to you. I have 2 phone numbers and neither of them matches." So he had really misunderstood. It was like a bolt of lightning. Liam's hand trembled as he dialed the number. There was no answer. Aurora's phone didn't ring. Stephen, who had been silent for a long time, sneered. "And what if you did have proof? Sir, those messages look quite ordinary. Perhaps they were from one of your admirers. What a pity for them to find out the person they admire has such despicable character." Chapter 25. For the first time in his life, Liam understood what it felt like to be unable to defend himself. He had to scroll through his photo album to find the sketch and show the date. I started preparing for this 3 months ago. When I first heard about the exhibition, I painted every single stroke myself. I did not plagiarize. Pairs of distrustful eyes stared at him. Even Aurora looked at him with disbelief. In his panic, he blurted out, "What if Stephen plagiarized me?" You can't just favor him because he's famous. That was the last straw for Stephen. He strode over and grabbed Liam by the collar. "Who do you think you are? You think I would plagiarize you? Wait, are you Liam Langley?" This was the first time he had come face to face with Liam today. He had trouble distinguishing between Asian faces and had only just recognized his former student. He roared with rage. "I sketched the draft for this painting 2 years ago. It was a passion project, but I never finished it, so I left it at home. I remember you were studying at my house at the time, so you plagiarized me." A loud buzzing filled Liam's head. He finally remembered why the initial sketch had flowed so effortlessly, even without a reference. 2 years ago, he had indeed seen that painting at Stephen's house. He had praised it endlessly back then. He never imagined it had been buried deep in his memory, leading him to mistake it for a flash of inspiration born from love. Aurora stepped forward to calm the breathless Stephen, then turned to Liam with an apologetic expression. "I'm sorry, Mr. Langley. Your painting is suspected of plagiarism, so we have no choice but to remove it from the exhibition." Liam couldn't even lift his head. He didn't dare to meet the shocked and uncertain gazes around him. Even Lachlan leaned in and whispered, "Did you really plagiarize?" He opened his mouth in shame, but found he couldn't utter a single word of defense. Aside from that minor incident, the art exhibition was an overwhelming success. Aurora Sterling consoled the indignant Stephen, promising to cover all his travel expenses during his time here. The artist pointed a finger at Liam from afar, making it clear this wasn't over, before grabbing his bag and storming off. The crowd gradually dispersed, but many media members remained, discussing the day's plagiarism scandal and eagerly drafting their headlines. So what if the Langley family tried to shut them down? How could they let such a huge story slip through their fingers? The victim of the plagiarism was Stephen. Liam no longer had the capacity to care about what others thought. He knew his reputation would be in tatters after this. Although money and influence could smooth over most things, Aurora would be deeply disappointed in him. He had ruined her exhibition. Aurora was at the washstand, cleaning her hands. Fragrant foam gently enveloped her 10 slender fingers, but her palms were calloused. They weren't the hands of a pampered heiress. They were clearly the hands of someone accustomed to hard labor. Chapter 26, Liam noticed them but didn't have time to ask. He just said anxiously, "I didn't plagiarize, I just had an impression of that painting, so I drew inspiration from it. Stephen painted his wife, but I painted you, Rory." Aurora met his gaze in the mirror's reflection and smiled, her lips curling. "Of course I believe you, Mr. Langley." Liam's eyes widened in a daze, then filled with ecstatic joy. "Really? Rory, thank you." He tried to express his sincerity, whispering, "For your next exhibition, I'll supply the paintings, okay? I don't even want the money. We can donate it all to charity together." Aurora methodically dried her hands, her tone casual. "That won't be necessary, Mr. Langley. Your reputation is shot. If I use your work again, my exhibition will be tainted, too. Who would be willing to display their art in my gallery then?" Liam's smile froze. A wave of grievance and hurt washed over him. "Rory, you know I was framed. Why won't you stand up for me? Why are you saying this?" The elaborate cleaning process was finally over. Aurora turned away from the mirror to face him directly. She held out her palm to him clean, fair, and spotless, but the thick calluses couldn't be erased so quickly. Liam was confused. Aurora scoffed. "Mr. Langley, you great people have such short memories. The winter 4 years ago was so cold. There were so many children in the art studio, and my job every day was to bend over, lift the buckets, go to the restroom to dump the paint-polluted water, and then refill them with clean water. In the process, the skin on my hands would tear, heal, and tear again. That's how I got these calluses. There were only about 17 or 18 kids in the whole studio, but I wasn't very strong. I had to make trip after trip, and the sloshing water would soak my shoes. You know, I only had that one pair of shoes to wear the entire winter. But I was happy doing it, because I love painting. Even though I rarely had the chance to paint myself, watching the children immersed in their world brought me genuine joy. There was one kid who was different from the others, pampered, as if carved from ivory. He looked a lot like you, Mr. Langley. And what happened later? That beautiful boy's uncle told the studio owner that I stole his nephew's paintbrush. I never imagined a single paintbrush could be so expensive, almost as much as my grandma's medical bills for a month. I cried and begged him to tell the owner I didn't steal it. I really didn't. But he just looked at me like I was trash and said in a very gentle tone. Liam's pupils dilated. He looked at Aurora, who was so close, her smile so kind, but his lips trembled, unable to form words. He said, "You dare to make Penny unhappy and expect to keep your job. You deserve to die." Chapter 27, she spoke the words softly, but they crashed like thunder in Liam's ears. Only now did Liam realize the profound, venomous hatred in Aurora's eyes. She hated him enough to tear him limb from limb. She popped a SIM card out of her phone, tilted her head with a smile, and tossed it into the sink's drain. "You are my muse." "That's a nice line," Aurora said with a laugh. "Go tell it to Stephen. Maybe he'll find you so eloquent that he'll decide not to sue you." The last thing that could have proven his innocence vanished from the world. All the favor, the gentleness, the care, it was all fake, the perfect camouflage for her revenge. A chill ran through Liam. He could barely move as he watched Aurora hum a cheerful tune and walk out of the washroom. Cold sweat trickled from his forehead down to his chin. His phone began to ring frantically. Liam's hand trembled so much it took him several tries to answer. On the other end, his mother's shocked and furious voice erupted. "Liam, what were you thinking, plagiarizing a famous artist's work for an exhibition? Are you insane? You're going to ruin the Langley family. It's all over the internet. Get home now. Your father wants an explanation." The phone slipped from his grasp and clattered to the floor, shattering the expensive screen. Having settled one score, Aurora was in a great mood, but she ran right into Reese Hawthorne as she turned the corner. His charming eyes roamed over her, filled with interest. "Miss Sterling, you are truly what?" Aurora raised an eyebrow. "Eavesdropping isn't a good habit, Mr. Hawthorne. Don't block my way." Reese raised his hands in a gesture of surrender. "Hey, no harm intended, and I have no plans to champion Liam's cause. I just find you fascinating. How about you dump Lachlan and be with me? He can't make sure Liam spends a few more months in a cell. Let me repeat myself. Lachlan and I are not a couple." Aurora's expression soured slightly. She had only been testing the waters, but she hadn't expected Reese to have heard the entire exchange. "And you're not my type either." She had been careless. She was so focused on baiting Liam that she forgot someone might be listening. But for now, Reese's stance was clear. He didn't seem to want to get involved. As for whether Liam went to jail or not, it didn't really matter. His reputation was ruined for good. Reese chuckled lowly. "So you're single right now? Does that mean I can pursue you?" "Whatever," Aurora said irritably. "If you want to go ahead, it's not like I can break your legs." She had no patience for Reese's games and turned to leave the dim, narrow corner, but he grabbed her arm. The difference in their strength was too great. Aurora was easily pulled back into his arms. The man's large hand cupped her cheek as he leaned down, about to kiss her. Chapter 28, Aurora's eyes widened, and she immediately raised her hand to slap him. Reese laughed. All right, I won't kiss you, don't hit me. How would I explain a slap mark when I walk out of here?" He released her, and she sneered. "You left a red mark on my cheek. How am I supposed to explain that?" Reese looked at her in surprise. Sure enough, there were faint red fingerprints on her delicate cheek. "I barely used any force, my mistake. But seriously, consider my offer. I treat women very well. Whoever you want to take down, I'll help you." That line clearly intrigued Aurora. Reese saw her eyes light up and, satisfied, shook his phone, signaling her to contact him when she'd made up her mind. He turned and walked out, composing a text message. "Run a background check on someone for me. Don't tip them off." The reply came back instantly. "Roger that. Man or woman, is this my future sister-in-law? Depends on how you perform." Remembering the message Aurora had sent him that day, Reese smiled as he sent the reply. Liam Langley had actually gone to jail over such a small matter. The police were resolute, perhaps because Stephen was an international figure and a world-class painter. The Langley family found they had no room for negotiation. They turned to the Sterling family for help, hoping Aurora could arrange for them to speak with Liam in prison. Aurora put on a troubled expression and said, Mr. and Mrs. Langley, why don't you tell me what you want to say and I'll pass it on? I can still get visitation rights. Liam's parents had no choice but to agree. Seeing Liam in prison, Aurora almost burst out laughing. His head was shaved, stripping him of his former melancholic, handsome air. He even cowered a little when he saw her. The guard was friendly, telling Aurora she had 10 minutes and to get straight to the point. Aurora spoke to him through the glass. How are you holding up? Are you used to it? For the record, I never intended for you to be locked up. The person who sued you was Stephen. Liam's lips were chapped and dry. He began to cry miserably. Rory, I was wrong. I shouldn't have framed you back then. I wasn't in my right mind. Please, get me out of here, okay? I promise I'll stay as far away from you as possible. I'll never bother you again. It's only 3 months. Just sit tight, Aurora said. It's a misdemeanor, don't be afraid. If you run into any trouble, ask the police for help. She suddenly felt a sense of weariness. Watching Liam sob and blubber, have pity on me, my parents must be worried sick, she thought to herself. If I pity you, who will pity the me from back then? Who will pity my grandma? Chapter 29, a rich man's paintbrush was worth an old woman's monthly medical bills. Grandma didn't last long in the cold wind, eventually becoming a small urn of ashes that could be carried anywhere. Tears welled in Aurora's eyes. She turned and walked out of the police station. Lachlan Grayson and Julian Donovan were waiting at the entrance. Seeing her looking so sad, they said with a hint of jealousy, "That punk deserves it for pulling a stunt like plagiarism." "Yeah, it's only a few months in jail, Rory. Don't feel bad for him." Aurora wiped her tears and managed a smile through them. "You guys are real jerks, not worried about your friend at all. I'm in a bad mood. Lachlan, take me mountain racing." Julian, who didn't know how to drive a race car, watched them with longing eyes. "What about me, Rory?" "You go home, don't get in our way," Lachlan said coolly. Using this excuse, Aurora went mountain racing with Lachlan many times. Not only did she quickly master the basics of driving a race car, but she also became familiar with his racing crew. Occasionally, they would run into Reese. He didn't seem to be part of Lachlan's crew. He just raced whenever he felt like it. The two of them were locked in a strange, unspoken rivalry. They were grown up now, not as impulsive as they had been in university, where they wore their animosity on their sleeves. Sitting in Lachlan's passenger seat, Aurora would sometimes feel his eyes on her. A slight chill would run up her spine, the kind of instinct an animal feels just before being hunted by a fierce predator. Even when she looked back, he wouldn't flinch, just grin at her, revealing sharp canine teeth. A dangerous character, Aurora assessed mentally. While she was secretly plotting how to deal with Lachlan, Reese made the first move. He was leaning against a heavy motorcycle, his riding pants and high-top boots making his legs look exceptionally long. With a cigarette dangling from his lips, he smiled at Lachlan. "Mr. Grayson, aren't you tired of racing cars? Want to try a bike?" Lachlan frowned. He wasn't an expert on motorcycles, especially on the steep mountain road, but he didn't want to show weakness in front of Aurora. "Sure, you want to race? What's the prize?" Reese grinned. This was exactly what he was waiting for. He pointed a leather-gloved finger at Aurora. "Her." "No," Lachlan's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Using a woman as a prize, you're not even human." "You wound me," Reese quickly waved his hands. "If I win, Aurora rides 1 lap with me, on the condition that she agrees." "How about it?" Aurora, who had been silent until now, let out a soft snort. "Fine, I'd like to see just how skilled the man who wants to give me a ride is." Lachlan couldn't help but feel a pang of jealousy. He pinched Aurora's chin. "Hey, look at me, don't look at other men." He was satisfied when Aurora slapped his hand away. He mounted the prepared motorcycle and got a feel for it. Motorcycles were slightly slower than race cars, but far more dangerous. Even with a helmet, it was easy to get hurt in a fall. Chapter 30, with a roar, 2 black shadows shot out like lightning, leaving a massive shockwave of sound in the air and drawing a chorus of cheers. Standing in the crowd, Aurora slowly curled her fingers into fists. She couldn't figure out what Reese was thinking. If he made a blatant move against Lachlan here, even with the Hawthorne family's immense power, the Grayson family would never let it go. It didn't take long to complete a lap of the mountain road. As expected, Reese came in first. He executed a stylish drift, skidding to a halt in front of Aurora. His eyes shone like stars, and he was breathing slightly heavily. He pointed to his own lips. Aurora almost laughed in exasperation. "Where's Lachlan?" "He fell, nothing serious." Just as she finished speaking, Lachlan rode back with a dark expression. He had a large scrape on his forehead, and the clothes on his arms and legs were torn, revealing bloodstains underneath. Seeing Aurora standing so close to Reese, he angrily shoved the motorcycle, letting it fall to the ground, and started to limp away. Reese raised an eyebrow and smiled. "Such a sore loser. Aurora, get on. I won't take you up the mountain, we'll just go for a ride." But Aurora only gave him a deep look, ignored his outstretched hand, and ran towards Lachlan. "Tisk, using me?" Reese clicked his tongue in annoyance. He watched her back but then broke into a smile. "Little rascal." Lachlan stared blankly as Aurora ran toward him. She took his arm, asking with anxious concern, "Are you okay? Why did you have to make a bet with him when you're not familiar with motorcycles?" "But," his heart ached, and he couldn't help but feel wronged. "If I lost, you would have had to ride with him. Why didn't you get on his bike just now?" Aurora shot him a look. "What's the big deal about one ride? You're this injured and you expect me to go with him? Come on, let's go to the hospital and see if your brain is still okay." Her words were harsh, but her heart was soft. Lachlan couldn't help but smile, feeling a little dizzy as he whispered, "Rory, you're so good to me. Stop talking. You're bleeding more and more." His declaration of love was cut short, but Lachlan didn't feel angry at all. Holding Aurora's hand, he actually felt a sense of relief. He was right, his confession shouldn't be so rushed. He would wait for the right moment to tell Aurora seriously that he loved her. After a CT scan, the doctor found nothing unusual. He patched Lachlan up and sent them home. Lachlan held onto Aurora's hand, unwilling to let go. "My head is really dizzy. Can you move in with me and take care of me?" Aurora said helplessly. "I have work at the company, and it's not like your house doesn't have servants." "All right." Lachlan was still reluctant to part with her but didn't want to annoy her, so he let go. "Then you have to come see me often." But fate had other plans. Aurora suddenly got very busy. Chapter 31. Although the previous art exhibition had a small hiccup, Chairman Sterling was generally very satisfied. It reaffirmed his confidence in his own judgment, and he was finally willing to bring Aurora under his wing to learn the family business. She was so busy for an entire week that she was practically a ghost. Lachlan, recovering at home, couldn't stand it any longer. It was pouring rain outside, but he forced himself to get up and change, determined to go to the Sterling Group headquarters to find her. His last message on their chat was from 3 hours ago. He had asked, "Have you eaten?" Aurora hadn't replied. Undeterred, Lachlan sent another. "I want to come find you, is that okay? I'll bring you food." Still no reply. But Lachlan had always been a man of action. For the first time in his 26 years, the young Mr. Grayson stepped into the kitchen, giving the servants a terrible fright. His hand was already injured, and his clumsy movements caused hot oil to splatter all over it. He stubbornly wasted an entire carton of eggs before finally frying a decent heart-shaped one. The housekeeper who had watched him grow up said with a pained heart, "What girl is lucky enough to deserve this young master? Please be careful. Look how red your hand is." Lachlan winced in pain but was still happy. "I'm the lucky one." "She's wonderful. Could you help me pack this in an insulated bag? I'm going to deliver it now." The Sterling Group headquarters was enormous. The driver dropped Lachlan off at the entrance and nervously tried to hold an umbrella for him. Lachlan waved him off and strode toward the company doors. The rain was torrential. In just those few steps, he was soaked to the bone, but thankfully, the lunchbox was unharmed. Lachlan stood dripping at the front desk. The rain had soaked the gauze on his head, creating a red halo around it. The receptionist couldn't help but stare. He checked his phone. Still no reply from Aurora. His expression fell. "Hello, could you please connect me to Aurora Sterling's line?" Lachlan asked patiently. "Oh, of course." The receptionist picked up the internal phone and nervously dialed the heiress's office. "Miss Sterling's office, there's someone downstairs for you." After a brief exchange, the receptionist apologized profusely, nearly bowing. Yes, I understand. I'm so sorry to have bothered you." She looked at Lachlan apologetically. "Sir, Miss Sterling's assistant said she's tied up with something and will be a while. Would you like to have a seat and wait?" Lachlan hadn't realized she was truly that busy. "All right," he said, dejected. He sat in the chilly, air-conditioned lobby. His rain-soaked clothes clung to his skin, a coldness seeping into his bones. The lunchbox in his hands still held a faint warmth. Afraid of getting it wet, he placed it on the table beside him. With his only source of heat gone, he began to shiver. When had the great Mr. Grayson ever endured such hardship? But as miserable as he was, it was wrapped in the sweetness of love. While muttering complaints, Lachlan mentally calculated how many kisses from Aurora it would take to make up for this. Chapter 32, he waited for an hour. The food had gone completely cold, and his clothes had been air-dried by the AC. His face was pale, and his wound throbbed, showing signs of inflammation. Just as he was about to ask the receptionist to call again, the main elevator dinged as it arrived on the ground floor. Out walked Aurora Sterling and Reese Hawthorne. They seemed to be having a pleasant conversation, their expressions relaxed, their eyes filled with laughter. Reese even gently tucked a stray strand of Aurora's hair behind her ear. They looked like a perfect couple. Being splattered with hot oil, drenched by the rain, waiting for an hour in the lobby, none of it hurt Lachlan more than this moment. Reese leaned in and whispered something with a smile, and Aurora playfully punched his arm. Their intimacy was obvious. Only after seeing Reese off did she notice Lachlan sitting in the corner. "What are you doing here?" she asked, surprised. Lachlan's eyes were downcast. "I sent you so many messages, but you never replied." Aurora glanced at her phone and quickly apologized. "I didn't mean to. The Hawthorne family sent someone over to discuss next quarter's bidding, and we got into a deep conversation, so I didn't check my phone." Her eyes were filled with guilt as she looked at him. "I'm sorry, does your wound still hurt? Are you hungry?" Gazed upon like that, how could Lachlan possibly stay angry? He remembered the lunch he had made. He had just handed it to Aurora when she opened the bag, took one look, and tossed it into the trash can. "Your family's chef isn't very good. I'll take you somewhere nice to eat, okay?" "I made that." Lachlan wanted to say it but held his tongue. As it turned out, the nice place to eat was just the company cafeteria because she had another meeting to attend soon. This series of events had left Lachlan utterly dejected. He said sullenly, "I'll head back in a bit. You go on with your work." Aurora knew she had neglected him. She stood on her toes and guiltily kissed the gauze on his forehead. "When you're better, we'll go mountain racing. We'll go on a proper date, okay?" she whispered. Instantly, all his bad feelings vanished. Lachlan touched his wound, feeling almost dizzy with happiness. It wasn't until he got home that he took his temperature and realized he was running a low-grade fever. Getting soaked in the rain, blasted by the cold air, and having an infected wound, it would take a toll on anyone. Thinking of the lunchbox thrown in the trash, Lachlan still felt a pang of sadness. He secretly resolved to learn how to cook from the household staff. Chapter 33, the Hawthorne and Sterling families had business dealings. Lachlan had always known that. But seeing the two of them appearing together at various events so frequently still filled him with a deep-seated jealousy. Mountain racing had become tasteless without his sharp-tongued rival and the person in his passenger seat. For a time, he took the initiative to take on more responsibilities at his own company. Although the Grayson family couldn't be compared to the Hawthornes or the Sterlings, if he performed better, would it make Aurora see him in a better light? He persistently continued to bring Aurora lunch. Though he only caught glimpses of her, he was content. Aurora would often message him, telling him about her day, which further convinced Lachlan that she wasn't without feelings for him. Lachlan prepared to confess. But first, he had to secure a major bid for the Grayson family to free up some time. Coincidentally, the Sterling family was also vying for it. Normally, the Sterlings didn't venture into this line of business, which was a core project for the Graysons. It was a contract they had to win, and they were confident they would. Aurora sent him a message, "Want to have lunch together?" Of course, Lachlan agreed. He had been so busy lately that he hadn't had time to properly groom himself. Aurora, however, was becoming more beautiful by the day. Wealth and status truly did wonders for a person. But why is the Sterling family bidding on this too? I don't remember your family having any related businesses in its portfolio. Hearing his question, a clear look of distress appeared on Aurora's face. "It's a task my grandfather gave me. If I don't complete it, he might not feel confident enough to give me my shares. Honestly, I don't want to compete with you. It would hurt our relationship." Her words made Lachlan's heart soften. This strong, assertive woman was willing to give up power for his sake. He couldn't help but reach out and take her hand. "It's okay. How about I support you in the future? Being a CEO is tiring. Look at you, you barely had any time to go on dates with me recently." Aurora bit her lower lip, her brow furrowed in sorrow. "I'm just afraid of disappointing my grandfather. The old man has such high hopes for me. I can't let him down." She looked genuinely upset. Lachlan couldn't bear to see her like this and took the initiative. "It's really not a big deal. The Grayson family has held this contract for so many years, what's 1 year without it? Rory, you go for it. If the investors favor the Sterling family more, you can fulfill your grandfather's wish." "Really?" A flash of joy lit up Aurora's eyes, but then she hesitated. "But won't your family give you a hard time? I'm the one calling the shots in the Grayson family now. Who can criticize me?" In the end, thanks to the Sterling family's immense financial power, the contract indeed went to them. Lachlan silently calculated the losses the Grayson family would incur this year and felt a pang of regret. But when he saw the bright, shining look of surprise Aurora gave him, he felt it was all worth it. This would make his confession even more likely to succeed, right? Chapter 34. Even as he listened to his father's furious reprimand over the phone, a small smile touched Lachlan's lips. "The Sterlings and the Graysons will be united by marriage sooner or later," he said cheerfully. "When that happens, will it even matter whose family is whose? I can't believe it was that easy. I can't believe Lachlan is that stupid," Aurora said, setting down her purse and complaining to Rhys. He agreed so readily. "I had a lot more planned that I didn't even get to use." If Rhys hadn't seen Aurora's history, he might have thought she was a venomous, unscrupulous woman who would do anything to achieve her goals. "Your plan was too perfect," he said, his gaze now filled with a mix of sympathy and admiration. "Even I would have fallen for it. What's a fortune to win a beauty's smile?" "To you, it's a fortune. To the Grayson family, it's their lifeblood," Aurora retorted. "The biggest mistake the Graysons ever made was handing the family business over to a pretty-faced, empty-headed vase like him. With this year's contract gone, does Lachlan really think he can just get it back next year? I'd say the Grayson family is finished. For now, he can limp along for a little while, using last year's inventory to stay in business. But when the first major market shift comes in the second half of the year and the Graysons can't provide the massive supply needed, they'll be forced out of the market for good." Rhys finished his calm analysis, which mirrored Aurora's own thoughts. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face, which Rhys immediately caught. "You're not getting soft, are you?" "How could I?" Aurora said. "He's asked me to dinner at the Pinnacle the day after tomorrow. He couldn't have found out, could he? Is it a trap?" A sharp glint appeared in Rhys's eyes. "I'll go with you." The Pinnacle was the most luxurious restaurant in the heart of Cresthaven, its top floor offering a panoramic view of the entire city. Lachlan, dressed in a formal suit, sat anxiously watching the elevator. He had arranged for fireworks and drones, booking the entire building for the night. Anyone coming up now could only be Aurora. He was going to give her the grandest, most unforgettable confession. But the time for their meeting came and went, and it was almost time for the confession to start, but there was still no sign of Aurora. She hadn't replied to his messages, either. Lachlan grew increasingly anxious. Aurora was an extremely punctual person. Could she have run into trouble on the way? The more he thought about it, the more nervous he became. He shot up from his seat and strode toward the elevator. An attendant tried to stop him, saying with a troubled look, "Mr. Grayson, the fireworks show is about to begin. What was the point if the main character wasn't even there?" As the elevator descended to the first floor, a brilliant firework exploded with a bang. Sheets of fire rained down like meteors, illuminating the night sky. It was a special firework he had personally selected, and in this magnificent, dreamlike scene, he saw two people locked in a kiss. Chapter 35. They looked so in love, their illuminated silhouettes breathtakingly beautiful, like a scene from a movie at least. That's what Lachlan might have thought if one of them wasn't the person he was supposed to be confessing to tonight. The bouquet in his hand fell to the ground, its petals scattering, covered in dust just like his trampled heart. Lachlan's eyes reddened, his heart aching as if it were being sliced open. "Why?" he whispered, lost and broken. Why, after he had tried so hard, had Aurora chosen someone else? His voice was drowned out by the fireworks. No one heard him. From the corner of her eye, Aurora saw the figure leave. She reached up to push Reese's face away, only to find that not only was he unwilling to move, but he was also trying to turn their staged, angled kiss into a real one. She narrowed her eyes slightly and whispered, "Don't make me hit you." Reese chuckled. "Use me and toss me aside just like that. Miss Sterling, you're a bit too pragmatic, aren't you? You volunteered. If it wasn't you, it would have been someone else," Aurora said, struggling against the arm he had wrapped around her waist. "Let go. The audience has already left, but I'm not acting." The fireworks were reflected in Reese's eyes, burning like a stream of light. He looked at her seriously. "I'm serious, Aurora Sterling. I will be your unstoppable sword." He took the hand she had placed in front of her lips and gently kissed her fingertips and her calluses. "Use me as you please." The strange looks from passers-by went unnoticed by Lachlan. He didn't know where he was going. The ring box in his pocket dug painfully into his side. Fireworks were still going off by the river. He watched the brilliant display, a mixture of grief and anger welling up inside him. He pulled out the ring and threw it into the water with all his might. But after hearing the plop, he was instantly filled with regret. He quickly shed his jacket and jumped into the river, causing a stir among the onlookers. What if Aurora was forced into it? The Hawthorne family has a history of shady business. Lachlan emerged from the water, drenched and clutching the ring box, his eyes bloodshot. He had to get an explanation from Aurora. Aurora was not being held against her will, as Lachlan imagined. She was lounging comfortably on the sofa at home, letting a maid remove her makeup. The moment the cotton pad touched her lips, she let out a soft hiss. The young maid bowed in panic, apologizing. Aurora said wearily, "It's fine. Just be gentle, it's not your fault." It was all that bastard Reese's fault. She was in a foul mood, her eyes downcast as she looked at the messages from Lachlan on her phone. He had asked where she was. 2 hours later, he asked if they could meet. Aurora agreed. Chapter 36, her father was just about to leave. When the villa's main door opened, he showed a slightly surprised expression. "Young Grayson, what are you doing here? Is it raining outside? You're soaked. Come in quickly." Lachlan only then realized he had forgotten to even change his clothes. His face was pale, and he was dripping water everywhere. "Mr. Sterling," he said in a low voice, "I'm here to see Rory." Aurora took a sip of tea and instructed a servant to get him a towel and hot water. Lachlan, who had been completely despondent, felt a flicker of hope when he saw she was still willing to acknowledge him. "Rory," he said cautiously, "why didn't you come tonight?" The servants had all left and her father had gone out. Soon, it was just the two of them standing silently in the villa. Aurora set down her cup and looked up at him. "Didn't you see for yourself?" So she knew he was there. The words hit Lachlan like a physical blow. His eyes slowly reddened, his lips trembled, and for a long time he couldn't speak. Finally, with a choked voice, he asked, "But don't you like me? Mr. Grayson, what are you thinking?" As if she had heard the funniest joke in the world, Aurora couldn't help but smile. "When did I ever say I liked you?" That sentence shattered his last remaining illusion. Lachlan stood there, stunned. Water dripped from his hair and pant legs, soaking a patch of the carpet beneath his feet. His eyes caught sight of a familiar lunchbox on a nearby table. It was one of the ones he had personally delivered every day. He hadn't expected her to keep them. Clinging to it like a lifeline, Lachlan said desperately, "But I've been learning to cook all sorts of dishes for you, and you ate them, didn't you? Rory, if you don't like me, how could you accept my—" "You mean that?" Aurora smiled. "Oh, you made that. No wonder it tasted so awful, but the ingredients were fresh, I'll give you that. I don't like to waste food, so I had the staff take it home for their dogs." Lachlan was trembling. All his heartfelt affection, like that despised lunchbox, had been trampled to pieces. Even he could now understand the malice in Aurora's attitude. He stumbled back a few steps in disbelief, his eyes shot with red veins. "Why?" he asked, his voice filled with pain. "Rory, why are you doing this to me? You're being forced, aren't you?" "Her food is only fit for a dog," Aurora said with a cheerful smile. "Mr. Grayson, does that line sound familiar?" Seeing his blank expression, Aurora sighed with boredom. "Right. How could I expect you privileged young masters to remember every single person you've hurt? To you, crushing a normal person is like a child crushing an ant. Just as careless, just as effortless, and just as shameless." Chapter 37, her words exploded in his ears like thunder, leaving a ringing in his head. He looked into her calm, smiling eyes and finally remembered the incident he had long ignored. This wasn't just the pampered, adored heiress of the Sterling family. This was also Aurora Sterling, the girl who had tirelessly saved her meager living expenses to bring him food, only to be cruelly humiliated. Her clear, bright eyes overlapped with the pain-filled eyes from that day years ago. He saw the girl standing helplessly outside the classroom, her eyes brimming with tears as he said, word for word, "Her food, just like her, makes me sick." The dusty memory from deep within his mind rushed forward, choking him and making his eyes burn. He could barely stand. He finally understood that all the injustice he faced today was the consequence of his own past actions. Aurora had thought she would be happy seeing this, but Lachlan's expression was so full of anguish that it was as if she were the abuser. The satisfaction suddenly felt hollow. She waved a hand. "Now that you know, you can go, young master." Lachlan staggered back as if he couldn't keep his balance. He clutched his head and sank to the floor in agony. Within minutes, his silent tears turned into choked sobs. He grabbed onto Aurora's leg as she tried to leave and looked up at her. "Please don't go, okay? Rory, I was wrong back then. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was truly wrong. Please give me a chance to make it up to you. I'll treat you well, Rory. I've fallen in love with you. I'll die without you. You don't need to apologize." Aurora's voice was gentle, but she firmly pried his hands away. "Lachlan, I've already collected the debt you owed me. As for what happens to you, what does that have to do with me? It's late. Go home," she said with a soft laugh. "Your parents must be worried." That was right. The Grayson family would soon discover that their eldest son had single-handedly given away their greatest advantage. Before long, they would be pushed out of the ever-changing business world. And then, she would never have to see this man again. Lachlan remained on the floor like an abandoned, drenched dog. An endless tide of regret and pain was consuming him, but it was too late. He couldn't go back 4 years and stop himself from hurting her. The ring from his pocket was left on the table. Aurora stood by the window, watching him limp away from the Sterling estate, his silhouette a picture of utter despair. "Why are you calling so late?" she complained into her phone. "If you have something to say, say it. I'm here to celebrate your success with you." Reese laughed, his voice slightly distorted by the signal. "It's lonely to have no one to share your joy with." Chapter 38. Aurora was silent for a moment before saying in a low voice, "Aren't you afraid I'll just kick you to the curb when I'm done? I'm this vicious, after all." Reese laughed. "You underestimate me. You have legs, but don't I? If you kick me away, I'll just chase after you again. Besides, you're not a vicious person." His tone finally lost its usual carelessness, becoming deep and gentle. "Having the ability to get revenge on those who bullied you is called growing up. Aurora Sterling, my only thought is that you haven't been ruthless enough. Why waste your time on trash like them? Have you forgotten about me? You promised you would use me." The tears that had begun to well up were instantly swept away. Aurora didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "I've never seen someone so eager to be used. Are you just bored with nothing to do?" Reese could hear the lightness in her voice and laughed along. "How is this being bored? I'm trying to sort out the most important event of my life." "The most important event of your life? How did helping me deal with them become your life's most important event?" he said with mock seriousness. "If I help you resolve your past traumas, you'll have time for romance, won't you? Then you'll marry me, and the most important event of my life will be sorted." "Marry you? In your dreams? Why shouldn't you be the one marrying into my family?" A corner of Reese's mouth lifted. "Deal," he said quickly. "I'll marry into your family. Just remember to prepare my dowry, and I'll pick an auspicious day to bring the entire Hawthorne family over to you." This time it was Aurora who was left speechless. She had underestimated Reese's shamelessness. The man continued cheerfully, "In order not to delay our wedding, I've decided to help out even if Miss Sterling doesn't ask me to. The next one is Julian Donovan, right? Sleep well. Your husband will take care of it for you. Good night, Aurora Sterling, my Miss Sterling." As if anticipating her scolding, he hung up quickly. "Who's your wife?" Aurora thought, but her ears couldn't help but turn red. She truly had a wonderful night's sleep, dreamless and peaceful until dawn. News of the Grayson family's troubles quickly spread throughout Cresthaven. This time, even Chairman Sterling said Aurora had acted too recklessly. While swallowing the Graysons' industry chain was good for the Sterling Group's development, acting too hastily had only worsened the Sterling family's already poor business reputation. Just like her grandfather. No wonder he's so confident in making her the next heir to the Sterling family. Chairman Sterling's expression was calm. "Rory, do you know the consequences of what you've done?" Aurora stood obediently by his side. Hearing what others were saying about her, she felt a little ashamed and lowered her head to accept the lecture. "Grandpa, I was wrong. A tall tree catches the wind. Making too many enemies is not a wise choice." Chairman Sterling wasn't blaming her, just shaking his head. "Our Sterling family's business is all above board, but because of that, we can't afford even a hint of scandal. If we run into someone who isn't afraid to play dirty, it will be very difficult for us." She understood her grandfather's meaning. It was precisely because the Sterling family was so powerful that they dared not venture into gray areas of business. This meant that if others played dirty, it would be difficult for them to prepare in advance. What if, she suddenly thought of Reese, we develop a deeper relationship with the Hawthorne family? Chapter 39. Currently, the Sterling and Hawthorne families were only connected in a very small number of industries. Although Chairman Sterling didn't know about their close personal relationship, he was aware that his granddaughter had already facilitated several deals with the Hawthornes. His gaze fell on Aurora. How much deeper? The Hawthornes aren't easy to deal with. For example, a marriage alliance. Chairman Sterling wasn't surprised by this answer. He neither agreed nor disagreed, simply telling Aurora to think things through carefully. Marriage was too important. No matter how powerful their family was, it was difficult to sort out all the intricacies. Marrying for the sake of family power would be very difficult to walk back from later. Aurora knew he was just doting on her and didn't want her to trade her happiness for power, so she didn't say any more. After dinner, Reese called. Looking at her family sitting in the living room, Aurora felt a strange sense of guilt. She walked out to the terrace to answer. The person on the other end was clearly getting impatient. "Who are you with? You left me hanging for ages," he complained. "It hasn't even been 2 minutes," Aurora said wearily. "What is it? Kiss me, and I'll tell you." "I'm hanging up." Aurora moved to end the call without a second thought. Reese quickly said, "It's about Julian Donovan. I found out why his mother divorced his father." Julian's mother was a piano teacher. When he was very young, she would hold his hands and teach him to play, placing her greatest hopes in him. She had always believed that musical talent was hereditary, but no matter how she taught him, Julian seemed incorrigibly inept. To make matters worse, his father constantly interfered and spoiled the child. Julian's mother was deeply disappointed. It was then that she discovered that one of her female students had been seduced by Julian's father and forced to become his mistress. The girl was only 7 or 8 years older than Julian. She witnessed with her own eyes the girl being held and fondled by Julian's father, enduring it with fear. The sight struck her like a bolt from the blue. She promptly filed for divorce. Only after Julian's father begged her, pleading that it would affect their son's future, did she refrain from calling the police. After providing the girl with generous compensation, she packed her bags and left the country. Hearing this high society scandal, Aurora's mouth fell open in shock. Thanks to his parents' deliberate concealment, Julian had always believed that his mother had gotten angry and left because he hadn't worked hard enough at his studies as a child. He had never slacked off on his piano practice all these years, all because of a promise his mother had made. On his 25th birthday, she would return to the country to hold a concert. If Julian was good enough, he could perform on stage with her. Julian had clung to this thought his entire life. He had fallen for Penelope Thorne partly because she was not only a dancer, but also an excellent pianist. He seemed so devoted and sincere, a poor child who loved his mother. But when he beat up Aurora Sterling, he had remembered that she loved to draw and that her weakness was her hands. Chapter 40. In the bitter cold of winter, Julian Donovan had stomped on Aurora Sterling's hands, grinding them under his feet. She remembered the bone-deep pain and began to tremble slightly. Her long silence must have alerted Reese. He said quickly, Aurora, are you listening?" "That's right." She gripped her trembling right hand, thinking, "I am Aurora Sterling now, not the helpless girl who could be bullied by anyone." This time, Reese didn't let Aurora make a move. It was too dirty. The other two had hurt her deeply, but at least they hadn't laid a hand on her themselves. They were things Aurora could handle on her own. Only Julian, with his harmless, slightly melancholic face, had bullied a pitiful orphan. The thought of Aurora being beaten in a small alley until she could barely stand made a fire rise in Reese's chest. He didn't light the cigarette in his mouth, nor did he get his own hands dirty. He crouched down to look at the bruised and swollen Julian and suddenly smiled. "Do you know why you're getting beaten?" Reese's voice was slow, as if to ensure Julian heard every word clearly. The other man's face was pressed to the ground, several men holding him down. He looked half dead, but Reese knew his men were measured in their attacks. The injuries weren't even as severe as the ones Aurora had been diagnosed with back then. Just thinking about the humiliation a 17-year-old Aurora had endured made his heart ache with a furious pity. He didn't have the patience to wait for Julian's reply and grabbed him by the hair. "You're paying for your own sins. You don't have a problem with that, do you?" A trickle of blood seeped from the corner of Julian's mouth. One of his teeth had been knocked out, and his head was ringing. "The Donovan family, the Donovans won't let you get away with this." "Oh." Reese licked his canine teeth and grinned. This was the first time someone had threatened him like this. It was true the Donovans could cause some trouble for the Hawthorns. His tone was flippant as he threw a stack of photos onto Julian's face. "With that bastard father of yours who sleeps with minors." Julian, who had been trying to protect his hands, now raised a trembling one to pick up the photos. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. The moment he saw the pictures, his mind went blank. The man in the photo, smiling as he held a young girl, was clearly a younger version of his father. "Know where these photos came from?" Reese said coldly. "Your mother took them?" "No, impossible." Julian shook his head violently. His eyes were swollen, and he had to force them wider to see the photos clearly. But the irrefutable proof was right in front of him. He couldn't deny the truth. "Your mother is a decent person. How did she end up marrying a scumbag like your father and giving birth to a little scumbag like you?" Reese clamped down on his arm and leaned in, his voice like that of a demon crawling out of hell. "Your piano skills aren't that great either, are they? On her perfect resume, you and your father are already a very ugly stain. It's better not to disturb her, don't you think?" Pain shot through his fingers. Heart-wrenching screams echoed through the sealed room. One of Reese's longtime subordinates asked with some concern, "Boss, he's not going to die, is he? The Donovans are a lot of trouble." Reese lit his cigarette and looked at Julian, who was drenched in a cold sweat and barely breathing. He kicked him. "I'm asking you a question. Is your father trouble? Though I'm guessing the police wouldn't find him troublesome. The statute of limitations for rape is 20 years, you know." Julian flinched. His father was the only family he had left. If he lost him too, he couldn't bear the thought. Cold sweat dripped down his temples, and the wounds on his hands stung fiercely. No trouble at all." Reese looked at his subordinate with satisfaction. "See, he says it's no trouble." Even after 5 years with Reese, the subordinate was still taken aback by his boss's shamelessness and cruelty. He nodded repeatedly. "I hope the boss's future wife takes this menace off our hands soon," he thought. Aurora sneezed. Reese laughed. "It hasn't even gotten cold yet. How did you catch a cold?" "It's not a cold," she said, rubbing her nose, unconcerned. She only wanted to know, why is the Donovan family saying they're moving out of Cresthaven? "What did you do to them?" Reese smiled. "Kiss me, and I'll tell you." Expecting another hit, Reese instinctively closed his eyes as Aurora leaned in abruptly. But instead of pain, he felt a soft, fragrant touch on his lips. He opened his eyes in disbelief. Aurora was blushing to the roots of her ears. "Hurry up and tell me," she urged. Reese swallowed. "Marry me, and I'll tell you." He got the slap he was waiting for. The people of Cresthaven heard 2 major pieces of news that month. The first was that the Donovan family had allegedly moved out of the city to evade police capture. After it was discovered, the family patriarch had committed statutory rape. He had since been apprehended abroad. The second was that the heir to the Sterling family, the second most powerful family in Cresthaven, and the CEO of the Hawthorne family, the third most powerful, were getting married. It was rumored not to be a business alliance, but a love match.